Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Metaverse Nomads podcast, where we talk about our favorite play-to-earn games and everything that's going on in the Metaverse today. So today I've got my Metaverse Nomads with me. I've got Whitticus. How are you doing today? And maybe we'll start with a question for everybody. What do you think about the price of Polis and Atlas right now? Jesse, go ahead.
Well, first, good to be here. Excited about jumping into what I believe is now the second or third episode this year so far. Good question about Polis. Been a big fan of the governance side of projects, and have been consistently putting my ship staking earnings into Polis. Polis dropped down to what I think a low of under $4, so it was down like $3.90 or something like that for a while, but keeps dancing around $4. I think it's going to be the same situation that we saw for ships. The attention of the community tends to place a lot of value and impact on what we see things doing. For example, we've talked about the price of ships. Ships were a steal going all the way up until the 16th, and now look at them. I think the same thing is happening with Polis. I think that we're going to see a jump back towards support around 10 once there's a firm date, and it may even take for the DAO to actually be launched and people to say, hey, look, I'm earning, I'm happy.
Fantastic. So Jesse's in the camp of go long on Polis. Ray, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing all right, man. It's been a long week. Glad to be here with you all in the community. What's going on, Rome? And everyone else who's watching, thank you for the support. Might as well click like and subscribe right now. You already know the deal. And when it comes to Polis, buy. Not financial advice. It's just a great opportunity to get into a big blue chip, in my opinion, NFT project, and it's being slept on. There's not enough people keeping on top of what's going on compared to other projects that I'm involved in.
So we got another check in the go long box on Polis. Bonafide, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing amazing. Thanks for asking, brother. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Polis, I'm with you guys. You're seeing it. I think we're below the lowest prices it's ever been at this point, right? So, me being the type of person who tends to, want to buy the red and sell the green, I'm buying as much as I can right now as far as Polis goes. I mean, if you believe in the future of the game, and this is going to be the governance token in the game, and you're going to be able to stake it as well. Obviously, this is something you might want to consider as holding on to. As far as Atlas goes, you're seeing it's the sell pressure token, and it's dipping a little bit right now, but the market's been kind of in general at a low point. And so we're not going to be really sure if Atlas is following the market and going down a little bit, or if this is the sell pressure from the ship staking. So, it's something to watch right now for sure. Definitely something to think about. But Polis, that's on the other side. I would definitely be buying it.
All right. That's 3 checks in the plus column for Polis. Fancy, how you doing today, man?
Doing great. Glad to be back. I'm not too sure how many people would be shorting Polis at the current price. But, there's a lot of pressure to move upwards, and it's been trying to find a new bottom for a while.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I'm in the same boat. Long Polis. There's so much buying opportunity right now, and I think Jesse nailed it on the head when we talked about the ship. Ships were at a burn barrel price, and then all of a sudden now they're above value or above initial sell price, and I think the same is going to come for Polis. And I appreciate the KNAT down in the comments there. Still not financial advice. Do your own research. Only invest the money you can afford. So we got a lot to talk about today, guys. We got the town hall that happened. We had Twitter spaces that happened. Tons of new information out from Star Atlas. We've got some Axie news at the end. We've got some Illuvium news at the end. And just note to everybody who's listening as a recording, we try to get the time codes in within 24 hours of the video being posted, so you can go to the parts that you want to hear if you want to skip some of the different content. So really appreciate you all being here. Our numbers continue to grow. It's a great reward to all of us to be able to have a discussion with the community. Why don't we get started? We got Star Atlas stuff going on. So who wants to open up their thoughts on the town hall and the Twitter spaces? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, it was good to be back. They were long anticipated. Weren't sure we were going to get them until the last minute, but yeah, it was worth waiting for. Especially the Twitter space. There was a lot of gold mines in there if people attended that.
Yeah, Star Atlas has to watch out. They hired Ash, but she's giving more leaks than the actual team on the town halls in the Discord.
Yeah, I think Chipto kind of got his feet wet on the town hall, and then he went to Twitter Spaces and just started letting it out. So hopefully he starts doing that on the town halls as well. Today, for everybody, we're going to cover both the town hall and the Twitter Spaces. Any other thoughts on the leaks, Bonafide?
Yeah, I think that just goes to show. I mean, this is what it's all about as far as, when we say, good morning and we're all going to make it and all these things. If you're actually out here, you're active, you're in the community, there's significant opportunity here because you're engaged. You're going to be around, you're going to see things and have opportunities that other people later on are just not going to have, or people that are less engaged. So if you're there for the town hall and then you ran over to Twitter and you got in that space with Ash, you got some alpha, and that was very beneficial to, or it could be very beneficial to you. So you want to stay engaged with these things and try to move through these different mediums.
Yeah, I think it was a good town hall from a few vantage points. One, as was already mentioned, friend of the show, Cryptic, who is now rebranded as, what is her Twitter handle now? It's
Ashes.soul, I think.
Queen of the Stars.
Yeah, I'll get it for you in a second.
So she's now officially a part of the Star Atlas team on, I guess, as a kind of a media outlet front. Chipto, fan of the show, and also we're a fan of him. And now he was pretty much introduced to the community as a whole. And as we've talked about here a couple times on this show, the dude has a really fascinating background, and he does have the all clear to be on here with us. So we anticipate having him here on the show with us as a guest here, probably within the coming weeks. So that was nice that he kind of made his debut. He's been within the foundation room, sharing some pretty cool stuff. But a nice introduction overall. And the other thing is, was mentioned, and they are on a hiring spree, but as has been mentioned before, it's not just grab anyone out there. Now that they have the recognition, people are coming to them. And so they kind of get to pick and choose the talent, but the team is growing. And there's just so much about what Star Atlas is revealing about what they're doing and where they're headed, that it's clearer all the time that they are definitely playing the long game.
Yeah, for some dev companies, it's kind of it feels like a risk because you spend your money and you don't hear anything about the game for months. And we won't get into that. We know who it is. But here we're starting to get a lot more with the roadmap that they've released. We're starting to get much more regular updates. You can tell there's a lot of activity happening behind the scenes. They even announced Project Rose Garden, which is a few years out and has its own roadmap with it. But so much information from the town hall and the Twitter space. I mean, it really was like Christmas in January with all the information we got. And I think a lot of people are re-energized about the game. We've already seen people in our own guild talking about new strategies or how they're going to strategize the cream. So a lot of good things to talk about today. Before we get into what was discussed, does anybody have any high-level thoughts about just where it's at with Star Atlas?
I think the mention of potentially the DAO being pushed back a bit, as things happen in development projects. I think the project overall is strong. I like that they revealed a lot of information that we'll be talking about as it relates to ship manufacturers and their relationship to factions. So some of the lore stuff is starting to come out as well. And when you look at these, you really can tell how much thought and energy has been put into that aspect of gameplay, not just the economy, but how the economy interfaces with the lore and how the factions and that aspect of gameplay will unfold. So I keep getting more excited the more I hear and the more information that's released.
One of the things that I was really excited to hear, that I don't know if we're going to cover it here in depth, but just looking at the amount of hiring they've been doing and talking about doing, he was talking about some of the new hires they have, and it's just a hotbed of activity. I mean, they just had a major release with Score a month ago, and already they're expanding the team. They're coming out with more stuff. So the buildup is intensifying. They're doing more work as they've already given back. And that lets you know that there's probably going to be a lot of exciting things for us here in the future with them.
You know, one of the things that I'm cautiously optimistic about is right now we're looking at a kind of a top-down game. We're clicking on some things, we're withdrawing our, managing our fleets, claiming our Atlas. We know that Cream is probably going to follow a similar model. And how do they get that grand strategy feel and push it into a first-person perspective? I think that's going to be the real neat thing to watch. And I think the cool thing about Star Atlas, and I had to explain to somebody over Twitter, I had to explain this to, is we're watching the building of a game from the very foundational loops, and there's some people who are a little bit upset that they call it not a game. And I think that's a mistake in saying that, because we're watching the beginning or the genesis of an amazing game. But it takes time and it requires some patience. It requires you to be okay with things that change and timelines that change as well.
But it's also more than just a game. This is a grand experiment that's creating a virtual economy. And if you're going to have a long-lasting, healthy economy, it has to be seeded properly. And I think that that's the way they're approaching it. Like, you've got this initial aspect of staking ships. Yeah, that's not like it's, this aspect of gameplay. From the outside looking in, they're like, how is that playing a game? But it is seeding the economy. It's getting things flowing. And now that there is an actual consumption that's taking place in the form of the 4Rs, it sounds like those 4Rs are going to be a part of the crafting model, so that it becomes another layer of seeding the economy by getting people to create products that are in demand within this early stage of the game.
I think you're spot on there, Jess. I mean, this is all, it goes back to the fact that they hired real economists, and that I think they just made like a whole head of their economic department or something like that. I was listening to Wagner say, and this is the kind of thing, I mean, like you say, you start with the ships, we're earning off the ships, then you start building in the resource gathering aspect of it. You're making money off resource gathering, then you're adding in the crafting aspect of it. Now you're making money off crafting these ships. I mean, like you say, it's a step-by-step process, and they're doing it in a way to preserve and protect their tokens, preserve and protect their economy. And that's how you're gonna see sustained game growth, instead of seeing a boom bust cycle like you see in a lot of these games, where they shoot up really fast, out of control, and then they don't know how to deal with the economic realities based off what they've done.
Yeah. Some people look for that. They want the risk, and when Star Atlas, it only goes up, say, 20% if you're holding a smaller ship. That isn't enough for a lot of people. So there has been a bit of disappointment about score, but depends how you look at it, really, and how much you're committing, I guess.
Yeah, and I would say that goes for the transparency that these AAA projects in our NFT gaming space give to the community. I'm pulling up this by the shopping channel. Shout out, Axie team has only just hit 100, which we'll get into it at the later part of the show when we do Axie stuff. But Star Atlas, they knew they were going to have this grand project to flesh out, and they need all this money and people. With Axie Infinity, on the other hand, it wasn't like they were doing something on Unreal Engine 5 that was as in depth as a Star Atlas is going to become. So
no, in Axie's defense, I mean, they came out way earlier. So I mean, the infrastructure, the possibilities. I mean, was Solana even a thing then? I mean, there's so much more that Star Atlas is capable of building off of. So it's not about comparing game to game so much as
And I think they stumbled on to some of the most significant components of their growth. I don't think they set out and said, we're going to have a scholar program and it's going to do this.
No, it was mind blowing looking on Twitter. Some of the OGs were talking about how, I think I talked about this a week or so ago about Bryson and Dave versus Axie, talking about how SOP was never supposed to be something that you earned, for finances. It was just supposed to be something you earned so that you could create more Axies.
Right.
And all of a sudden people started living off it.
Right. It's one ingredient in the bowl of salad that we know is coming, which so that's why I'm saying, even though they just hit 100, it's a fantastic milestone in my opinion for doing that within the year of the same growth of all the scholarship craze and bonanza that happened. So their horizons have grown as far as what this project will become, and that's why they're getting to 100 plus as time goes on, because this is bigger than just what they might have thought they were going to be able to accomplish as well, from what they shared very early on. So that's pretty cool.
I think, both with Axie and Star Atlas and other projects that we're involved in, it really describes the I guess, acceptance of ambiguity that you need to have, right? Because there's going to be changes. There's going to be things that are intended one way and get tweaked a different way. And when you get more and more people's hands on these different things, they're going to come up with different strategies to take advantage of things and maybe even break things as they go. So, we kind of talked a little bit last week about now we've got real money invested in this, and what if they do tweaks where it impacts your earnings? This is going to be a learning curve for all of us as we deal with that, because we're involving our money and more actively moving our money around, or capital, if you want to call it that. And we have other people or systems that are going to have a direct impact based on how that other people are using that capital. So there's so much cool things to see coming up.
I think one thing you mentioned there, Banjo, is very important, though, is that they do update us. I mean, Star Atlas is putting out updates on a consistent, regular basis. And what that does is that allows for people, even if they were to do a 180 from 1 week to the next, it still allows the community to see what they're doing, see where they're going, and either be a part of it or not accordingly. When you have these companies that are not telling you anything, then you feel a lot more like you got rug pulled at the end of the day. Because all of a sudden you had this idea in your head that they were going in a certain direction. When they do a 180, you feel a lot worse about them than a company that's being very transparent and open with you.
I'm 100% with you, man. And I like a happy medium. I like a roadmap, and I'm less inclined to need dates anymore, right? Because I understand dates change, and it gets a lot of people in the community upset. When we know that Star Atlas dealt with some of that in Q4 of last year. We know other developers have dealt with it. But as long as we can see what they're working on, I think that's a good compromise for, needing to know every detail and by when. And looking down to the comments there with Sean, Michael Wagner never shies away from an interview, most transparent project out there. I agree. We have seen some examples where that might have not been true, and we've discussed it on the show and we've moved past it. But by and large, the SA team does a really good job with transparency.
So with that said, while we have not locked down a date yet, we have engaged them about getting him on the show. So there's lots of questions we have, and we'd love to have him be a part of this dialogue. And I think that based on some of our back channel conversations amongst us, I think we'd make a great show.
You're losing audio there, Jess.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah, there you go.
Based on what?
Just go back like 5 seconds.
Based on our back channel conversations amongst us, I think it would make for a unique show and an interview that would be different than we've seen with him before.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, true fans of what's coming and true fans of the dev team also. Bonafide, you made a great segue into everything that they talked about. And we had some information that came out on the town hall. We had some information that came out through the Twitter spaces, and there's going to be some overlap. I don't know if we're going to be able to distinguish which came from where. So bear with us on that, and just know that it might have come from one or the other. But let's talk about some of the things that were released this past couple days. So we found out that staking to planets is going to generate resources, which I think we all intuitively kind of understood. And I think just like Score, it's going to be a little bit more basic than people probably wanted. But like I said earlier, we're witnessing the foundational loops of a very broad and expansive game. So to me, this makes sense. What are your guys' thoughts on staking your mining deeds to planets to get certain resources?
I missed this part, so I'm going to have to go back through and get a better understanding of it. So when you say staking to planets, you're not talking about the DAO form of staking. You're talking about
not talking about the land race. No,
this is just the NFT itself for mining and using that to stake to a planet. Is that what we're talking about?
The way I understood it, Jesse, is it's just like Score. You've got your fleet that you're quote unquote staking. You can say whatever it is that you want to call it, but you're putting up an asset and generating a return on it. And instead of Atlas, as I understand it, the return is resources from that specific planet, or the planet. The resources that would come from that planet and that planet only.
So that's interesting, because in the past, it's been my understanding that in order to stake any claim, that it would require land. And I see your last bullet there as it says a base tier of land will be cheap, potentially cheaper than an X4. So that means the cheapest land would be, $20, which I think overall, if that's accurate, I think overall it's interesting because if we look at the whole hierarchy all the way down, you've got the factions. Of course, you have the 3 different regions, but you have the factions. And then from there, you have regions. And then those regions have planetary systems. And then, of course, those have planets. And then on each of those planets, I think there is up to 64 land claims. So there's going to have to be a lot of planets within a lot of planetary systems, within a lot of regions in each faction to be able to accommodate this many land sales if the cheapest land sale is actually going to be $20.
Yeah, and
just to be clear, Jesse, right quick. So that little bit, I think that might have actually come. I don't know if that was in the town hall. I think that might have actually
this
come
was from the Twitter space.
Yeah, from the Twitter space. And
that's
so
why you didn't hear of it.
The thing about it is that his actual phrasing was that that's what he would like to see. The team, as we all know at Star Atlas, wants the barrier of entry to be very low so that people can get into the game. And so what he was saying is that he would like to see the ability to get land and basically start from there. You get land, you start getting resources as being a way to get into the game, and for you to be able to do that under the price of the cheapest ship, so under $20, like you said. But that was like a hope and a desire. That's not anything that's actually confirmed. And then he also mentioned in that same statement that you would basically have like 3 different gameplay loops that you could kind of come in at for the cheap. So you would either be able to come in with the land, getting resources. You would be able to come in buying crafting material on the open market, creating ships that way, like the cheaper ships that way, getting into the game. Or you would be able to buy a ship and stake it and earn Atlas and get into the game that way. So he was providing 3 different types of gameplay loops that could give access to people who might not have a whole lot of investable value in the beginning.
Yeah, and as I understand it, it's a way to get the resources into the game for the crafting. And let's take a little break because we have a guest who joined us today. Kojisan, how you doing today, man?
What up? How you doing, guys?
Good. What's going on in your neck of the woods?
Yeah. How are you guys? Happy New Year, by the way.
Happy
New Year, brother.
Happy New Year.
Yeah. So, how is it going? How's it going here? I was listening to all the news. I haven't been very, paying attention to everything that happened in Star Atlas. But I did invest more money into it. So it means I still love it. And I do my score every day.
Well, that's why we do the show, so everybody doesn't have to watch it all the time. We got it backlogged for you.
Yeah. Well, glad to have you here. As always, if you need more info, you can reach out to us, and anybody out in the world can reach out and see our YouTube channels that are stored. But Koji-san, what are you working on right now? What's new for you?
No, it's more of the same. I mean, I'm working in trying to explain to the community. The Hispanic community is very stuck in this click to earn environment. They want a quick buck. They want these projects that you try to get a white list, you make a quick buck, and then these projects are bubbles that they don't have any fundamentals to last more than a month. And I'm trying to do that transition. I've been in those projects. I mean, you can make a quick buck sometimes, but on the other side, there are people that are losing a lot of money. And I'm trying to be this vessel of information in the community, but sadly, I don't know, it's all the Latinos. I mean, we want the quick money, the easy money. So I've been struggling. It's like actually my numbers in YouTube and Twitch are going down because I changed the way I'm doing things now. And I'm being brutally honest, talking about these projects that they're not gonna last. I try to push things like Star Atlas, Illuvium, things long-term, Axe Infinity, but they want the quick buck. That's it. That's what I'm doing. I still do click to earns, but I'm brutally honest, and I try to, among those projects, and within them, I try to choose the ones that I know they're gonna at least try to last like 2 months.
Right.
And I'm very honest to everybody, saying like, this is a bubble, you're gonna lose money, it's high risk. But I don't know, I need to make the transition. So that's what's going on in the past month and a half.
Awesome. And just for the record, if for those watching who don't know, Koji-san is a patrician of Rome. and he has helped with onboarding a lot of Latin American members to become citizens of Rome. And he's one of the largest influencers of South America as far as YouTube. So definitely check him out. You can follow him at, share your socials for sure, because, the route that you're going, I told you on the back end, you're going to be the one that lasts the longest and becomes more of a staple of information in your own right for the Hispanic community versus any of these click to earn YouTubers who are growing very fast, but ultimately will ruin their reputation, in the medium to long term, even short term, with these click to earn flip flop the rug pull games.
I think Ray's absolutely right. You're gonna be history is gonna remember you a lot more fondly for doing what you're doing. So shout out to you, and that's admirable, because I remember a lot of the YouTubers that I used to watch in 2017 who were, participating in the ICO boom and the pump and dumps, and were, telling me to buy all these coins that had no fundamentals. Those guys aren't here anymore. Their channels are about race cars or something else now. Like, they're totally not in crypto anymore. You know what I mean? Because they just totally destroyed their reputations in that cycle. And I said it, on this show before, NFTs, this whole boom reminds me of the ICO boom in a way. And a lot of stuff is going to go away. And so you got to kind of protect yourself. And, we don't talk about all the projects we see, because it's dangerous out there right now.
Well, it's a challenge, and Kojisan, you kind of mentioned this, that for a content creator, if you're going to continue to reinvent yourself and decide what it is you want to focus on as the market around you changes, especially when you're looking at the metaverse as a whole and blockchain gaming, you could make an entire show around a single project or a couple of projects. Yep. Or if you want to keep your ear to the ground and be a news source for people that pay attention to your content, you're looking at the landscape as a whole. But then that also presents the challenge of people who feel like their best opportunity for making money in this space is to be early to a project. They're potentially going to dive into something that you just mentioned. Not that you're endorsing it, but you just mention it, and they're like, "Oh, it's go time." So it's a challenging situation to be in as a content creator in a space that is evolving so rapidly, like it is now.
We've seen that in our own Discord, where we have our channel where people mention projects that they're interested in, and a few of us have gone deep on some of these projects, and there's some that have kind of fallen flat, and there's some that have changed direction. And I think you just have to expect that in the space, and there's going to be some cost of learning that come with this process over the time, right? But Koji, I think we all need a lesson in how to set up a background, man, because that looks awesome.
That's beautiful.
Right? Yeah, I like how you got that YouTube award right at the top, right above your head.
Well deserved.
Well, I mean, it all depends. You aren't. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you are not like content creators. I mean, so that's why what you have is amazing. I mean, Banjo, I love that setup with your angle camera. I used to have one like that, but I like it more frontal, so you can see like the logo, the axis.
Right.
I love it.
You can see it all.
It's a Bitcoin. It's supposed to be orange, but it starts flickering, so I put a red. This is my company.
Well, we need to get to a Star
what the
Atlas
market's
one.
doing. Sometimes it's green, sometimes it's red.
Indicators.
Oh my god. So yeah, guys. Right. So basically, that's what I'm doing. So we'll see what's going on. We're gonna. People will get to this, because my point of view in all this is like very simple, and this is my speech to all my audience is like, guys, what do you want? You want to put $100 and make 200 at the end of the month, or you prefer to have $100 and for the next 20 years you're gonna make $20 a month? And sadly, I mean, they're changing. At the beginning, it was 90% people. I want the flip. But now it's like my channel is about 50-50. People are understanding with all the scams, the rug pulls that they're getting, because there are a lot. Now they are getting into this, and I keep explaining what the metaverse is going to bring us. I mean, I said, like, weren't you tired of your 9-to-5 job? Weren't you in South America, Venezuela, Argentina, any of those countries? I mean, any country in Central America, that you couldn't even find a job that could give you like $100 or $200 a month. And now you can be in a metaverse, being an engineer in a ship, in a Star Atlas or something. And probably you can get like 500, working a 9-to-5 online job. And that's what I tell them. And people are getting excited, but they keep complaining. But I don't want to wait until 2025. And I get it. I say like, well, but this is a process. You can buy a ship. You can use a score. You're gonna get on 7 to 10%, on your investment. There are ways to do it, but I keep telling them the quick buck. You're gonna hit it once every, I don't know, 5 times, 6 times. What about the other losses? What about if the first time you put it, you lost it? I have people that have lost, like they actually literally ask someone to lend them $800, put it in one of these weird projects, and they have lost it all. $800 in Latin America is a lot of money. So I keep telling them, why would you do that? So that's what I'm trying to teach.
I'm waiting for the time that I'm in I don't know, an airport or at a cocktail party somewhere, and I ask someone what they do, and they respond, well, oh yeah, I run a hydroponics farm on a virtual spaceship in a game.
Yeah, I had my brother watch this podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he was, or not a podcast, but a YouTuber was talking about, he actually went into Centraland and got a job in a casino. And he was talking like, a lot of games you would have an NPC doing this kind of job, like kind of explaining how to interact and how to play the game. They actually had a live person that was there. I think he said he was doing like 4 hours a day, so many days a week or whatever. So it was a real legitimate part-time job that he had while he was in college, working in a casino in Decentraland.
So I think we all have a number in our head of how much passive income we would need to make today, a day or a month, to do this full time. I'm just curious, Koji-san, from your perspective in the markets that you support, what is that number? Like, what is the daily passive for them to live 100% in the metaverse?
Well, it depends. I mean, there are countries like with a very bad situation right now, like Venezuela, Argentina. Like basically, we're talking about with $150 a month, one person can actually live. It's not something complicated. For us in the United States, we know that number is not even close, but that's the way. But if you want me to give you a number, like we can go all the way from Mexico and you go down to Chile, I would say with $500, there is no way. No one in Latin America couldn't be living off that. If you go to Spain, Europe is more expensive. I strongly believe they would need in Spain, $1,200 a month, and then and this is one person. We're talking about one person, but sometimes you can squeeze in a second person and do it. So it's not difficult to get there, guys.
Kind of a question that kind of fits into that is, how is Latin America adopting to being bankless? Like, I know a lot of folks already were. In some places, it's actually quite expensive to even have a bank account. So how does that work? Let's say that you are earning crypto. How does that become a form of currency that you could use in place of fiat?
It would be the same process that is here in the United States. I mean, people with crypto, there are countries that are more, open to them. Like you have El Salvador with the president. He's creating the Bitcoin city. He actually has bought so much Bitcoin, and he's very open. You can go with your MetaMask in El Salvador. Like Kojisan. Kojisan went to El Salvador, and he literally told me that he bought something with his MetaMask in a store, and he was like in awe. So imagine that thing. There are countries that are doing that. I know Uruguay is very like crypto friendly. There are other countries like Venezuela, because of the type of government they have, everything is blocked. So crypto there is really problematic. They cannot even have like, crypto.com or Coinbase and things like that. They don't work in Venezuela. But in general, it's not as complicated as we say. We in the United States, where we have more issues, like to transfer our money, and the tax and the taxation and everything is more complicated than in many countries in Latin America. So it would be the same, man. It would be the same. You work like it is. You put it in a centralized, exchange. Like Binance works very good outside United States, much better. Here, the Binance.us is horrible. So it works really good there. And from there, you have many options to put it in your bank account. It's very simple. Argentina, that is a country that is supposed to have issues. All my people in Argentina, they changed easy from Binance to their bank account.
Well, I mean, one of the interesting possibilities, like on this, I was traveling for a month, and just out of curiosity, I wanted to see what the experience would be like. And so I was literally using the crypto.com card. And not only can you use this in places that have terminals, you can actually convert crypto straight to, it's an instant transition to fiat. And then you can go to an ATM machine, you know, if you're in a place where it's a lot easier to utilize cash as opposed to using terminals. So, and I see a lot of even companies starting to try and do variations of this where you load it up even from DeFi. So I see that as potentially being an interesting way that people can do the conversions even without going to their bank.
It just goes to show you that as we all move deeper, because, you know, I feel like just like with everybody coming eventually towards Bitcoin, everybody's eventually going to be in the metaverse in some form or fashion. And so it's all going to be about, you know, physically moving yourself to where you're going to be treated best. Like you were mentioning a lot of things, Koji, that are very important when it comes to taxes and you know, expenses and ease of living and things like that. Quality life wise, people are going to start being able to move around with a lot more freedom now. It's going to be interesting.
But I'm expecting. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, but I still see ourselves, I mean, me, content creator and influencer, that we have to be teaching people, and we have to do it like with the most, you know, honesty that we can do, because we are influencers. I mean, I used to be just a regular content creator of video games. Well, but when there is money invested, it's so dangerous. So the past 6 months has been like a roller coaster for me, because I mean, I feel bad. I have people like, you know, my messages in private, like, very happy because they did a good investment, but as well, I have had angry people. Like, I saw a video of this game and I trusted you, and I go like, okay, I have a disclaimer. I'm not an expert. It's cryptocurrency. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I'm a father with 2 kids, and I know how difficult it is to get your money. So we have a responsibility, and that's what I'm trying to do, to be as honest as I can. And, you know, learn. We have to learn. This is a learning process for all of us. And then what we say to others is the most important. And that's what I'm going to keep doing, guys.
That's why we talk about Star Atlas so much, because they take that so much more seriously. As far as, you know, they hired economists, and we were just talking about before you came on the show that the time and the care that they've taken in positioning themselves to not have something that's just going to simply fall apart and we got a rug pull situation on our hands again. They're really setting themselves up for longevity, and that's really important in this space. And I think you know, all of us out here in the metaverse, our attention and our value, our money is very important. It's very needed, and we need to be paying attention to making sure that we allocate to the things that are going to be better for the metaverse in the future. So yeah, you might be able to make a quick buck, get in and out on something that you know is going to rug, but wouldn't it be better to be investing in and promoting and giving your attention to something that's going to last and allow other people to also be in a better position in life?
Yeah, I think you're doing a great job, Kojisan, in choosing a AAA game that has fair returns in the long run that would last much longer than a rug pull is fantastic, and we're glad to have you with us at Rome.
Yeah. There's something that needs to be said, though, is that there is no guarantee. And we are not, you know, we don't read the future. We just share the things that we're discovering along the way. And at the end of the day, it still always comes down to personal responsibility. We can't tell anyone what to do. We can just share what we're doing and have conversations about the things that we discover. But it's ultimately up to every individual to decide for themselves, because even as you know, Wagner says about Star Atlas itself, it's a grand experiment. No one knows. No one ultimately knows what the future looks like for any of these projects.
Well, I think people, especially in today's society where everything is, you know, pushed out there to be the next best thing, I think people are looking for ground truth and reality. So I really do think they appreciate somebody who's telling them with transparency and vulnerability what could happen, and, you know, maybe what you should stay away from, and don't think that because one person said something's great, it's going to be the best thing out there. And I admire what you're doing, Koji-san, because I think there's a lot of people who are new to this space who really want to do well, and they buy into the hype. But we don't always see the bad stories. You know, we only get them through DMs like you described. No one's out there talking about the 10 rugs that happened last week and how many people lost money in them. Everyone's talking about the stuff that's doing really well, and they make
the new rug
like
for next month.
Yeah, and they're always a winner on Twitter, right? They talk about how great they are on Twitter with all the projects, but they don't talk about the 5 projects that they got rugged on.
No, I agree with you, and that's another thing that I have a lot. Like people, let me knock on wood. I don't, because I do a lot of click to earns. I still have never been scammed or rugged yet. Mm-hmm. But since I'm doing the transition, I hope I end my streak, without any incident. But the other thing is like I'm very, very like honest. Like I said, again, like everything since the video, I can do a video by click to earn, and I not only have my disclaimer, but then my words, they are like, this is a betting, this is like in a casino, this is a high risk, this is a bubble. So understand, if you don't get early, the probability of you making money is very slim, and this and that. So I'm very clear with that and how I do it, and that's why people like my honesty. Mm-hmm. But sadly, honesty doesn't equate into
views,
getting more people views,
making money.
I cannot do I cannot that many clickbaits. Also, I'm honest with my investment. There are many people that say, "Oh, don't follow Koji because he's the worst investor," and I go like, "No, it's not like I'm the worst. The difference is I tell you when I lose money. You want me to show you every time I only I put $5,000 here and I make 40,000? Oh yeah." I'm such a big dog, but what about when I bought something in a little bit of a FOMO and I put $10,000 and then it became 1,000? Mm-hmm. I'm not going to lose my manhood to tell you. I'm just showing you, it's a learning experience that it happens quite often. Yeah. I got rug pulled with I don't know how many solana I put into an NFT, and I got rug pulled. I told everybody, I did my research wasn't properly done, and I lost like a lot of money. So it happens, and people love that. I mean, most people love it. They say, "Wow, you're so honest about yourself." But I know content creators, they hide all that. They are the gurus. They know it all. They never lose money in this, which is impossible. The most volatile
if you're here, you
investment ever, and they never lose money. I wonder how.
You might have won big on some things, but if you're in this space, if you've been in here any kind of length of time, I guarantee you've lost some money here and there. You had to. There's everything isn't going to the moon. It's just not a thing.
So speaking of, okay.
I was going to say, just as this industry begins to evolve, like, what are your thoughts on projects now that are fully doxed versus those that still have like a whole bunch of anonymous leadership?
Yeah. It's interesting. There's a DeFi project I'm involved in that has a very anonymous leadership, and it's been a challenge to work with that program because they've been taking a lot longer to do stuff, and there's been some mistakes along the way. And it would help. And I know with the internet, putting yourself out there, your public face out there, your real name, that's not an easy thing to do. But when you're investing millions and millions of dollars, or people are investing in you, it's helpful to know who you're putting your money with, right?
For sure.
So on that note, Koji, thanks for joining us. Stay here as long as you want to. We're going to get back into the presentation.
I wanted to tell you that I have to, because sadly I have other things to do on my own channel, but I wanted to come by, and I want to tell people I'm going to be putting a Star Atlas. That is when I buy that extra ships, and I'm going to be giving some ships as a giveaway. So pay attention to my socials and everything.
We'll promote that in Rome, and by all means, share your socials here.
I'll let you know then, Ray. Okay, it will be great. For tonight or tomorrow during the day when the video comes out. So I'll let people. Thank you for having me, guys.
Where can we find you on social media?
I'm sorry that I haven't been that often here, but I have to get more into this. I mean, I love coming here and having a...
What are your Twitter handles and Twitch handles?
It's everything the same. Kojisan and then NFT behind it. They're all the same. Kojisan NFT throughout every platform.
Okay, great.
Fantastic.
Thanks
so man. Much. We'll see you soon.
Talk soon.
Thank you very much, guys. I'm going to jump up. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
That brings to mind really quick something that he just emphasized how easy it would be to change somebody's life by buying them a $20 ship. I mean, if you think about it, everyone thinks about scholars and how we bring value to people in their life through scholarships, but you could spend $100 on a couple ships and maybe have the same impact. It might be something we need to talk about internally as a guild about how do we make maybe I don't want to say a charity, but some way to do that. because I think that would be really fulfilling.
It's really you're making a good point, Banjo. That was what initially got me to kind of lose my mind over Axie. It wasn't the gameplay, as we've talked about before here on the show. I got into it trying to make a quick buck, breeding, and I did decent. I did okay with that. Probably kind of broke even, but I started doing scholarships alongside of it, and just the amount of gratitude. I mean, I was getting messages where they were telling me how they bought their first computers. Guy remodeled his kitchen. I had a few where they were able to get their own Axie teams and do their own thing and get their own scholars. And these are the kind of things that got me locked into it. You can definitely change somebody's mind or somebody's life with just a couple of bucks a week or a month if you can help them to earn that in these ecosystems. It's amazing.
I agree. And there's in our chat right now, and there's a lot of welcoming and people joining in. And I just want to just share that PG just joined, and he doesn't get the opportunity to join us that often because he has to wake up pretty early to do it. But
right.
I also wanted to share that PG is the guild member and also one of our patricians who helps manage our Rome Twitter account. So he's kind of the person behind that Twitter account, and he does some good work for us. It's always great when you have a guild member who's out there representing and marketing what you're trying to accomplish. So thanks, PG.
Indeed.
Okay, let's get back into that update. So we talked a little bit about the resource-specific planets. And next on the list is that extra small ships or extra small ships will be first out the gate for blueprints and crafting, which seems to make sense. And it sounds like Thimble is going to be the base ship manufacturer out the gate, but that kind of doesn't jive with.
If you think
FAC.
about it, really, they are like the base type of ship. They're not aligned with one type of faction since they're like part of the pirates. They're all a bit junky looking. No offense.
The look goes with it, yeah.
Yeah, like steampunkish. So I can imagine them being crafted like as one of the first things quite easily. Yeah.
The only thing that worries me about this is that I kind of wanted that Fimbo Lobby to be around the level of an Opal Jet and not be down at that $20, you got to deal with it every day level. Because I'm definitely buying a bunch of those, whatever it is.
It still seems to me like it should be in the jet category.
Hopefully,
yeah.
If I could deal with it every 2 days, I'll be happy.
Well, the other question that we had, that we kind of touched on in past weeks, is that for those extra small ships, how many components do we think is a part of that blueprint, part of that recipe for crafting? Do we think it's going to be just a handful? Is it going to be a dozen, 2 dozen? I mean, what does that look like?
If you just look at the economic chain, right? So you got to be able to gather these resources and craft them into a ship and then profit. And then what does that chain look like? Or you got to be able to craft these resources and trade them, and then somebody's supposed to be able to buy them off the marketplace and create a ship for a profit. So yeah, like you're saying, I mean, this kind of goes, either these things are going to have to be very, very cheap, or you're not going to have to use a whole lot of them. There's going to have to be some kind of balance there to keep the prices down.
Yeah, and all of these points on the screen were like transcribed from the Twitter space. They were said in more of like a
theory crafting type of way, right?
Yeah. And just the way it's been written down, it looks quite official. So these things could be liable to change so far away.
And that's something that's important to bring up, Fanti. So when we get this stuff, this live alpha from these guys, and like we were talking about how they come out with updates all the time to keep us posted, just remember, guys, that this stuff isn't set in stone until it's actually live on the blockchain, and even then it's subject to change. This is a game after all. So just kind of remember that these are just these ideas that these guys are coming up with. It gives you an idea of where they're trying to go, not necessarily where they're going to be.
But at least when they share these ideas, or when they're asked the question about them, they don't look off into the distance and think about it as if it's the first time they've ever considered it, as we've seen in other projects.
That's always scary when they do that, those other projects.
So here's a consideration for those. One of the things that maybe they'll do it this way. maybe there's only a handful of components that you need to put together yourself that are maybe specific to your region or faction. And then they have some general components that they provide in the marketplace, the same way they're doing the 4Rs right now. So that's an interesting way to kickstart the process where there may be a number of requirements. Let's say there's 8 components, but let's say that 4 to 6 of them are available within their marketplace, like the 4Rs currently are, and then it's up to you to get those other resources. Could be something like that.
Yeah, well, they haven't talked about crafting like modules or components much really at all, and that's going to be a giant side, as you said. The first Cream V0 is going to not have any manufacturer loyalty. It's not going to have like locations on the map. It's just going to be getting the resource pretty much, and then I think he also said it's like not day one you're going to be able to craft on, because you're going to have to put things down, develop everything, and then you're going to start getting all the resources which you'll be able to use eventually.
Are you going to need a facility, or you just have to piece, if you have enough of the components, you simply combine them and away you go?
I think one of the points he said on the next slide is that, so the 3 ways you'll be able to profit as a new player is one of them is using your time to craft materials or refining them, making them. So yeah, your time is valuable. If you spend like 8 to 10 hours, I think is what he said, building something, you'll be able to charge for more on the market. You won't have to literally mine everything out of the ground if you don't have that. There's going to be all these different parts of the supply chain too that you'll be able to participate in.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea, the concept that you could literally be the dude that supplies this one component to a bunch of different crafters.
Yeah. And when manufacturer loyalty is going to be enabled, it's going to be valuable to have them people out trying to get the best blueprints, because they're going to be slowly releasing more and more things. So you're going to have to be at the cutting edge of development technology.
How do you think that's going to lay out with the loyalty? I mean, do you think that's going to be quests? Do you think it's going to be driven by production? What do you think is going to drive loyalty?
So it's what you are using, I believe. So if you are a Pierce and you're Mud, you're going to have quite an efficient reputation gain rate.
Right.
But if you're like an let's say an Ooster,
so you think by flying the ships you're going to get loyalty?
There's going to be quests. I'm not sure how in depth.
Okay,
yeah.
You would think that should play a role. I mean, like if you think in terms of how merchants gain better rates and discounts and all that sort of thing, it's usually business and relationship built over time. So that should be a factor.
Yeah, just like could you guys hear me?
Yeah.
So just like in Destiny, which even Chip alluded to for an example in the Twitter space, which we'll probably get to, but you have different factions, and the more quests you do for that particular faction, you have a stronger reputation, which then, that's what you ultimately represent. Yeah.
So
there we go. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If we think about the graphic that's on the screen, right, we tried to lay it out so people could visually understand what happens, right? So we've got each faction, we've got Mud, Ooster, and Oni that each have their faction-specific shipbuilding. So Pierce, Visas, and Busan. And Visas, I think I wanted so much to be Oni, but they made it Ooster. It is what it is. Pierce is mil tech or military tech. Visas is military and stealth, and then Busan is really stealth tech. And the only Busan we've seen so far is the Titan ship, I think. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and that's not even released yet. The Busan, The Last Stand. So I assume that's going to be like the Thimbles and the Pierce. There's going to be like loads of smaller types of things we're going to be able to make eventually, and that's going to get bigger and bigger.
Yeah. So that raises an interesting question about like the fact that we have these whole lines of ships that have still yet to come out. Do we think that Star Atlas is going to hold to the pricing model that was a part of the GAO, even though now we're venturing into ship models that weren't a part of that original document? Are they going to be priced higher like we see some other projects start to do? that continually, every time they drop something, they raise the price? Or do we think that out the gate, they're going to be similarly priced based on the size as compared to the ships that have already been dropped?
That's a great question, Jesse. And I've had the same thought that, we know that Gala has priced their follow-on NFTs at a much higher initial price based on the open market price of some of the stuff that's already sold.
Yeah.
I think where that's really going to trip up here is that we know that the Atlas distribution through Score is tied to the sale of that price. And if they do that, they're going to drive people out of the Gen 1 ships and then they're going to be buying all this other stuff. And the Gen 1s are going to crash in price if they go that route. I really hope they don't.
Yeah. I think that's a really good question. And I like where your head's at on that, Banjo, because this is where it goes back to actually hiring economists and taking your economy seriously. So the pricing of future ships is going to have an effect on the economy. People are going to have to be able to craft items to be able to make these ships. This will change the economy as far as gathering resources. It'll change the value of modules and components on any kind of trading dexes we have. Also, it'll change the amount, like you said, according to the VWAP, it'll change the amount that people are able to earn. So all of these things will play with the economy in a major way. And from what I've seen of the Star Atlas team so far, unlike most projects in the space, in fact, they seem to be taking this very seriously at the outset. So I don't think they're going to make that bad move, which I would consider a bad move, which would be to raise the prices of the ships based off the fact that they've been able to sell out previously. I think that taking it more seriously and kind of controlling that based off of what the economy actually tells them is a smarter move. I think they might make that choice.
As I'm looking at this graphic, there's another consideration for why the pricing should be in line with what is already dropped. So if we look at this here, we can see Pierce up top. So that's full on mud. We can see the Visus is Ooster. And then, of course, we've seen the Opal, which is somewhere in between Pierce and Visus. We see the Calico. And we see the Ogrica. The only thing that really has not been dropped on here as a substantial ship manufacturer is Busan. And so that kind of brings ONI fully into the same realm of the ships that already exist for both Mud and Ooster. So because of that, I would expect that here in the very near future, we're probably going to see some interesting ships from within that line. And because of that, to kind of keep it balanced between those, I would expect that they should hold within the existing gal prices.
Well, and even if they keep the existing prices, there's so much money that's going to be moved around, right? And we know that there's going to be people who sell their assets to buy other assets just for whatever reason. They might think it looks cooler, or maybe it fits their game style better. So it is going to be interesting to see how this FY22 group of ships impacts the current price of all the other ones. And I'm hoping it doesn't drop too much, but we know some of them have some rather good appreciation currently, but that might drop that. And maybe it's an opportunity to sell and then rebuy and kind of be a broker of ships if you think about what's coming.
I love those little market pressure dynamics that allow you to kind of just play the market and make money in games, so thank you for bringing that up, because that's actually a really cool idea, that somebody who has made a lot of appreciation, because some of these ships have appreciated so far already. You see a new ship coming out, you don't necessarily have easy capital you can get to. You sell that ship at a massive profit. You go buy the new ship that you actually want. Now that new ship, or that old ship that you had, actually has sell pressure from people doing that, drives the price back down. Because some of the ships that I actually wanted are out of range for me now, just because they've gone up so much.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So let's kind of talk about what sits underneath this graphic, right? So we know each Council of Peace faction has one proprietary ship manufacturer. And however, faction passes will allow people from different factions to build loyalty. And I'm not sure if that means they have to travel deep space to get to that. Well, it's all within the Council of Peace. So it sounds like it's going to be safe to go from one place to another. And we know that the resources used in those proprietary shipbuilding blueprints will be in higher abundance in the faction that they're in. However, it was laid out on the town hall that all resources can be gathered in any faction, just in varying amounts, right? So there's nothing that prevents you from gathering, primarily diamond in one faction. You can still get it in another faction, just at a lesser amount. and it might be cheaper to buy it on the open market from a more plentiful faction.
Right. That makes sense.
And then, we also know that owning and trading ships across factions is unrestricted, but we still have to pay for the transport and the transaction fees. So there's still going to be that piece. And there was something that came up, and maybe one of you has some clarification on it. I thought I saw something that made a distinction between some resources needing transport costs and some not. Did anyone hear anything about that?
That might have been in the Foundation room.
Oh, well, Alpha, sorry. Hopefully I won't get kicked out.
Well, let's theory craft that for a moment then. That's a good question. So let's say that you have a resource that is scarce in your region, but it's produced in the next, and you've got deep space between you. What is the mechanism for acquiring that resource?
Right. I mean, do you have to take your pack light and, risk deep space to get there and bring some back? I think that's ideally what I want it to be, but I don't think it's going to put people at so much risk, especially in the initial, Cream Point 1 or version 1.
Yeah. Well, in this top-down version of the game, they would just be adding that in kind of arbitrarily based off of the numbers, not really knowing what the actual cost will be late game. And this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. I mean, just the idea that they're already kind of positioning themselves to think about this stuff ahead of time is really nice to see.
Yeah, I think if you want more of that particular resource that you're not going to have such an abundance of within your own faction, then you're going to have to maybe and it'll push you out, as Chip was saying, outside of your comfort zone or your faction to then get that amount that you need to complete a ship build of any particular kind, where you're going to have some type of resource, but on a very small percentage base of the others factions resources, but just so small divided amongst every other guild or amount of ONI players. If we're talking about ONI, you would have to then go out into the abyss. And
I like this comment from Zamsor from the chat. He says, Reaper squad escort needed in deep space transport. Shout out to my guy from the guild. Maybe I'll be able to bring a couple of 2 for fights, help you guys out, make a little change with you. Let me know.
There you go. We'll have checkpoints.
For those who don't know, Reaper's one of the squads within the Rome Guild.
Yeah, thank you, Jesse. So one of the other things that is new with this document is they're identifying Council of Peace faction, right? So that's kind of a new term for us. And we know that we had the 3. We knew that there was Mud, Oni, and Ooster. But this document also introduced some other new factions, and we're going to talk about those in a second. But the 3, unique ways of including other shipbuilders within the Council of Peace is kind of this dual faction ship manufacturer, which is really restricted to 2 factions. So between Pierce and Busan, you've got Calico, and there's varying levels of loyalty required depending on your faction to get access to those blueprints, which I think is a great way to approach it. But I'm wondering, and maybe I can get your perspective on this, guys, is when it says Busan needs minor loyalty required to build Calico, does that mean you need less or you need more?
So with each one, there's a pairing, and there's a major and a minor. So I believe Calico is Pierce first, and then as the major, and then Oni as the minor. So you earn more if you're Pierce slightly, I think. But yeah, I do like the system, and it was quite interesting to try and figure out how these ships fit into the equation without knowing this.
Well, there's
and also the fact that Calico is listed as a stealth ship is quite cool. I didn't really expect that.
Well, there's an add-on to that. Right now, there's a ship on here that I don't see has a home that's already been in the first gal. Where do the rainbows fall? Is that Fotali? Is that the mysterious advanced?
Yeah.
So that's the other. I was hoping they were going to fall under Oni, but yeah, they fall under. They're basically as far as we know, they're the only kind of special. Sorry.
Well, they're kind of the ONI alliance, right? So they're just deep space version.
They're neutral and mysterious.
Yeah. Okay.
They're I think them and the whoever the people behind the 2 for fights are. There's a couple different factions that aren't player factions.
Yeah,
and that may have been the original intent, that Fatoli was part of the ONI faction, but maybe they branched it off now and kind of this mysterious faction that might be manipulating the entire metaverse. That's how I took it from looking at it.
So those,
you know,
so those
go ahead,
outer
Joseph.
rings are influenced perhaps by some of those factions, but they're independent.
Yeah, all the Ecos, the Tufa, the Jorvik, which is bring your own ship, and the Patoli are new factions that we haven't seen identified as factions yet.
Interesting. Okay.
And not financial advice, but you're kind of also seeing what these ship values are going to look like in the future. So, you know, I mean, some of these ships are obviously going to be easier to make, and some of these are not going to be harder to make. I'm not going to make things harder on myself because I'm still buying ships, but it's something to look at and think about right here. You look at this chart, you can kind of see where things are going to flow.
Yeah, one interesting thing to come from this is I know a lot of people who have a thimble transport, and they were like seeing themselves as like a merchant, a cargo person, but that's a Jorvik, like the pirate faction. So that's going to be in like medium space and deep space.
Much riskier.
So yeah, like the way I was picturing before is quite wrong, really. Like I was just seeing it as like a safe insurance you could put down in like the safe zone, and then you'd leave it there, just transporting things forever. But perhaps it's like a salvage expert.
Well, I had to do a quick adjust behind the scenes to get Thimble located into the center because it wasn't lining up that it was supposed to be the easiest ship to manufacture and the cheapest one. And then when I looked at the document again, I always just assumed Thimble was BIOS. I thought it was one and the same. Yeah. And now we've got Thimble, which is kind of the core cheap budget civilian dominant ship. But we've got the Jorvik faction, which is doing kind of the outlaw pirate contraband and miltech, which kind of makes more sense for the Packlight, right? This is a ship that's meant to be used by outlaws and pirates to move stuff around.
Yeah, it's cool. I know people who are reading this, if they had a Tufa or Fotoli, were quite happy with the way they were described. The prices
for a rainbow. Yeah.
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 Just the idea of having like a mysterious and advanced tech for the price it was at compared to like the other things it was released with, like people who I was looking at the PX6 originally, but I ended up getting the Rainbow Chi because it was on sale at the time, and I'm happy I did that instead.
Yeah. Well, you know, and just to reorient back to the slide, everything within the big blue circle is all built from resources that you can get from the low risk zone, right? There's no risk of you going out and mining or getting these products. All those blueprints from those manufacturers come from the low risk zone. But when we get out into the four factions, you're either going to be dealing with medium or high risk zone. And this document talked a little bit about the factions. So maybe we can kind of go through each faction and talk about what they do and maybe give our thoughts on how they expect that to show up in the game. So we talked a little bit about Jorvik, BYOS, as a faction of outlaws and pirates who are plaguing medium and high-risk zones. You're going to need to get the resources from medium and high-risk zones. You're going to get faster loyalty increases in the high-risk zones, which makes sense. And then resources used in the blueprints are spread across all regions. So to me, this is kind of the... I expect this is going to show up as a lot of NPCs in the medium and high risk zones.
What would we say is the primary ship that represents that comes to mind?
I mean, the first one that comes to mind, and I have a bias, is the Packlight, but that's more shipping, right? But it is contraband.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it looks like, pieced together, and I could see pirates and smugglers, and just getting it from point A to point B. Yeah,
gives you the Han Solo vibe.
Yeah.
And the BOS or BYOS ERP, right? That's kind of an attack, attack plane or ship, if you will.
Man, every time I see this ship, though, I just think, will it start?
Yeah. It's like every spaceship that has some sort of sound when it doesn't start in any space show, right?
Taking it back to Han Solo, they're always working on the Millennium Falcon, right?
But what's cool and what actually explains things now is from like the Ecos thimbles, right? Because that's a thimble line as well, if I'm not mistaken. But also has this same old beat up look. It's now we realize it's a separate faction altogether, which is really cool.
Yeah,
like that's That's gorgeous.
These are clean. I used to associate these with the Pack Light or that kind of line of ship, and I was like, but then as we started seeing these models and how they have the sleek look
clean
to them on the outside, but not only that, they had this interesting luxury look on the inside as well, which is pretty interesting.
So keep that picture up, and let's talk about ecos. You've got a faction of radicals who terraform via bombings in the medium and high risk zones. It's going to require medium and high risk zone gameplay. You'll get faster loyalty in the high risk zones, and the resources are across all regions. So initially, I thought this would be something that would be good for like a Pierce attack fleet and in addition to that. But this seems like a line that is probably going to have its full complement of bombers and fighter ships and things like that.
And biodiesel.
Biodiesel. Dead bodies.
Rich.
All right, so let's get that graphic back up on the screen. We got here. All right, so the next one we've got is Tufa, and this is the one that really, really excited me because it tells something about the lore within the explanation. So this is a faction of metagenic creatures, the Scourge of the Cataclysm, high risk zone only, right? This isn't done in medium or safe zone. Loyalty only accrues within the high risk zones, and the resources are spread across all faction regions with the exception of some of the exotic high risk zone locked materials. But what came out in the town hall or Twitter space is that these are the people who are around the cataclysm, right? This is whatever alien species has somehow become the alien species that centers within and around the cataclysm and if I'm not mistaken, that means closer to the diamond planet.
No.
Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, thus far we've only seen one ship out of this line, and it's a 20 meters in length, classified as a small, the one we're looking at here. So I'm curious what other ships might look like. And this one here, the technology is interesting. It kind of sits on the other side of where you would see stealth, but this is like the epitome of stealth.
Right.
Yes. So that's a good question, Jesse. Are we going to see larger and larger asteroids as they go up in ship
something
size?
Death Star looking, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So I like this picture because it kind of looks like an evil Iron Man is driving it. But yeah, I got this zoom in one as well, and you can get a bit of a better look at him, but not much detail. Kind of looks like this hood is like coming out of his chest.
Well, we saw a picture of him within that character sheet that showed all the different races, right? So we know he's a mixture of like rock and technology.
Right.
In the back left.
Guy in the back, yeah.
And it looks like a pet of the same species on the far left there.
Yeah.
No,
that's
I mainly like these guys because they call them
female of the species.
I like these guys because they call them the Scourge of the Cataclysm. I mean, that's a hell of a title to have as for your community. You know what I mean? So you can only get loyalty with them by playing in the most dangerous zone in the game. So is this going to be the hardest faction to get loyalty with, or is the Fatoli at a similar level? I forget where the
Fatoli are more expensive. So like just in price ranges in the ships, the Tufa Feast was priced below the Rainbow Chief. So
well, no, I mean as far as like difficulty of gaining loyalty.
So the way I read it, Bonafide is the Tufa will be harder because it requires high risk zone gameplay. That isn't stated in the Fatoli side. They just say that's faction agnostic, and doesn't say high risk.
So that's interesting. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if this is the NPC that we will see around, the Cataclysm and the people we have to fight first or gain loyalty with. And maybe there's benefits to either one, right? Maybe you choose them to be an enemy and you can get resources that way. Or maybe if you get loyalty, you can go that route.
Yeah, and you can see the Iron Man type of thing in the Tufa's chest, like in more definition here.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I'll bring back up the other picture. But yeah, there was a couple cool pictures of Tufa this week.
Show us the other ones, Fancy.
Yeah, I will.
Do you have-
This one, as a guild leader, makes me kind of nervous. Like watching this cargo transport just drifting by.
Yeah.
Unpredicted.
Yeah,
Right.
this is the other angle of what that
The
Tufa
Tufa
is.
Feist.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane.
Well, you know what's
So-
interesting about that picture is we've talked about the absence of really large cargo ships, and I would venture to say that one is a very
Huge.
large cargo ship.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, it kind of looks like a cargo container with like a small platform with a rocket attached to it.
Ah.
Yep. Going leftwards. Yeah.
Yeah, it's maybe just strapped to it. That would be enough.
So a little bit of alpha from Ash's Twitter Spaces. I'm not going to say too much, but it was basically the question was asked if a guild could say go after a certain faction and get a lot of loyalty from them. I'm bringing this up because we're talking about the Tufa Feist. Say you get a lot of loyalty with this faction, would that enable you to move through their areas and not get attacked? And it was actually responded to rather favorably. And the idea was that perhaps you would be able to move through their areas safely, but you wouldn't be able to move through the other factions in the high risk zone. Or maybe you would lose the ability to move through those other factions equally, compared to a guild who hadn't done that. And so there would be like a little bit of a trade-off and a plus and minus. And like I say, this is like, pre-alpha. This is just people theory crafted and spitballing live in Ash's Twitter space.
We've all played games. I think we've all played games where there's been some level of faction building involved, and
right. Loyalty building, yeah.
And I will say that the downside of many of those games is there wasn't a lot of downside to going against a faction. I'm hoping that this shows up better in Star Atlas. Jesse, you got something for us?
Yeah, this is just another view from within the Tufa that I don't think we've seen on here before, but it is on the in the marketplace shot, and while it's a drawing, so kind of mock up, it is just an interesting perspective that's kind of complementary to the last one that Fancy just showed, where you can see that it's a small. You've got that one spot up front. You don't have a whole lot of people traveling with you, although it looks like that's a bit of a jump seat maybe in the back there.
Yeah.
But yeah, just interesting technology and ship style the whole way around.
And I think what raises questions. I'm not going to say there was insider information for why all those Tufas were sold, but whoever bought all those Tufas, kudos to you.
Yeah, Ray, can you explain that
goodbye.
for people who don't know what you're talking about?
Yeah, so from what I know, there was just a large sum, or the rest of them that were for sale by Star Atlas were scooped up in one in one scoop, and now there's one person or one wallet address that owns 2,000 plus. I forget the number. Tufa Feast. So when you're out there, if you're out there, get in touch with Rome.
So
we're dropping too much alpha on this podcast. I'm never going to be able to buy a Tufa Feist now. You guys.
Yeah. Well, if that particular person had the opportunity to see this ahead of time, maybe that's why you saw a big purchase, right? So let's create some scandal when it may not even really be there.
So if you're transporting goods, so if you're transporting goods through a meteor field that has roughly 2,000 or so, beware.
That's amazing. That's an amazing idea. That's maybe that's what he saw was, hey, I have the ability to create my own asteroid belt now, and so travel through it at your own risk.
Yeah,
and then you see 2,000 of these opening up at the same time, right?
Oh, that'd be so sick. Yeah. I hope we're not giving him too many ideas. He's probably
outside of just wanting to be an astro build, I wonder what else propelled him to do such a purchase. Unless you're just wanting to buy everything in that moment to sell. I feel like there's more going on here.
Yeah, at one point that was at one point, according to that club website, it was like the highest return. It was like 146% APR at one point. Right, so it was, if you bought it right at that moment, I can't remember exactly when it was done, then that was an amazing purchase. So it's not even like a low level ship either. It's it's up there a little bit.
One of the things we haven't heard too much about is what happens when you decommission these ships. What kind of resources do you get out of them? And I'm wondering if when you decommission a Tufa, does it give you the resources that you can only get in the high-end zone without having to go out there? So there might be a bunch of reasons why, and it may just be as simple as they saw the APR on the club website. But it seems like that's a pretty strategic play.
So you're
all in all,
that,
go ahead, Jesse. Sorry.
I was just saying, Benjo, you're suggesting that in the process of salvaging them, there may be resources that are rare because you can only get them out there that you may have use for.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Yeah.
All in all, it's like from our theory crafting, it was a good buy all around. So shout out right quick to Timmy B from the chat. What are the risks of being in medium high risk zones? We've covered this in the past, but just to help you out, you have the 3 zones. The safe zone, you can't be harmed. The medium zone, you can be harmed and accrue like a cost, but you don't lose your NFT. And then in the high risk zone, you're essentially risking your assets. Anybody else have anything to add to that?
Yeah, you
respawn in the
be
medium.
destroyed in the medium zone, but it can respawn. But you lose all of the upgrades and all of the crew and things like that.
Yeah, and I would expect that we're going to see refinements of that process all the way around. Even within the foundation room, they've been talking about that recently. And just for those who don't know, if you are a what do they call it? A server booster on the Star Atlas Discord, you get access to the foundation room where you get some leaks. You can ask questions specifically of the dev, but the request is that you are very discreet and you do not share that information outside of the foundation room. Right. The unfortunate thing for us is sometimes we lose sight of where we heard things and we might accidentally slip every once in a while.
Right. And just for an added information on top of the zones, when it comes to earning potential, it goes up as you go further out. So you have a 1x return on anything in the safe zone where you can't necessarily lose anything or get hurt. And then in the medium zone, the second zone, you'll have a 3x reward for whatever you're mining or however it's going to work. And then on the outer skirts of deep space, you'll have a 8x return, if I remember correctly. So it's incentivizing us to get out there sooner than later to earn more rewards faster, but then at the cost of burning your NFT if you get into a battle and you lose it, and then you're scavenged.
Reminds me of the conversation we just had with Kojisan as far as the crypto space, and then following that the NFT space, right? Is that you can get into you can invest in something in a safe manner and try to earn slowly, or you can get out there and risk it all on the crap table, as it were, and see what happens.
I wanted to share this I found in the general chat by Sprite von Pixel. I hope it plays nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there's some good things being made.
I think I saw that in the sky last night as I was looking up.
That's amazing.
That's gonna be good.
So the last faction we talked loosely about, but just to give you the rundown from the official documentation, the Fatoli, an ancient race of light-based creatures and a source of extremely advanced technology. They are agnostic to all factions. Anybody can gain loyalty with them. And actually, they're not even called a faction, but if you do mysterious biddings for them, it increases loyalty. You unlock access to secret manufacturing techniques using highly exotic materials found in high-risk zones. The techniques and exotic materials are integral to the manufacturing of rainbow ships. And it's the most complex and time-consuming manufacturing line. So following the logic of the conversation we had around Tufa, there might be a similar idea with Fatoli if you can salvage these ships and get resources with lower risk than going to a high-risk zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Chip in the Twitter space was equating the Fatoli as if you ever played Destiny. There's every once a couple of hours or once a week or how I forget the name of this gentleman who comes up where you can purchase unique legendary items for a higher cost and do missions for. I forget the name. It's escaping my mind here, but basically they're going to be at different locations at different times, not fixed, where you're going to be able to build that reputation with the Fatoli.
And for those who have played Destiny or Destiny 2, that merchant is Zur, XUR.
Right. There you go. Thanks,
and he moves around from zone to zone selling basically stuff that you can either camp for it or buy it from him.
There you go. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah. So before we move on from here, any other thoughts or comments around the ships or the shipbuilders?
Yeah, I kind of have it's related to shipbuilders, it's related to races. And my question is this. So we know now that we have the 4Rs, and those 4Rs make sense as a means of having some consumption coming from the activity rather than just simply rewards of staking. But my question is that do we think that at some point early on within ships, we will see things like the ships that have lean towards something of value? We know that the Ohm ship, the Chi, I believe,
Rainbow Ohm and Rainbow Chi.
Yeah, I think the Chi is like exceptionally efficient at distance travel. So will it reduce its fuel costs? Will the Calico Guardian, because it has onboard hydroponics, is it going to reduce the cost required for food? Oh, and as we enter crafting, can you use those facilities for crafting food that you can then sell? And then the other questions I have, like from food consumption, we've got the Ooster. What exactly are the Ooster eating? And the Fotali, the Fotali themselves, they're light beings. What are they eating? And my grander question with them is, why do they even need a ship? They're a light being. So I'm just curious how much of the lore and how much of the actual functionality of these different ships and what we would expect to be natural ways of being for these different races will start to play a role in how they engage the economy.
Well, one of the things that Chipto said on the town hall is I forget his real name, but Buntius was spending a lot of time going over the lore with him before he started making decisions about the game. So I love the idea that they're tying it all back to the lore and probably a design document, frankly, that outlines some of this stuff. But that there's such an opportunity here for them to do amazing things with factions. And we're just seeing the shipbuilding. We're not even talking about factions that might be in farming or mining or something like that. This is the risky part of theory crafting, because oftentimes we build up this grand idea of what's going to be in our heads, and then we get a little disappointed. But man, it seems like they have a huge canvas in front of them that they can do a lot with.
Right.
And they're doing the work right. They didn't just hire a guy to start designing ships. They hired a guy, sat him down with the lore guy, and then he started designing ships. That's just the way they go about things in this company is something I can respect.
And they have different people designing different. You can see it. You can see that there is a distinct difference between a Fimble and anything built by Pierce. So you can see Visu ships. The Opod is going to be distinctly different from the Ogrica. So I like that they're coming from a completely different approach, as you would have for different races of being in different factions. So I like that it shows itself in the way that these different models of ships are distinctly different from each other.
Well, distinction in it might even be cool to see distinction in how you build loyalty as well, right? Like for one group, it might be building something. For one group, it might be taking out another group. I think if somebody posted this, I didn't see it, but I think this is kind of a hilarious joke in relation to Tufa loyalty. On the bright side, when you have loyalty with the Tufa, it's rock solid. So that's pretty awesome.
That's good.
And solid as a rock. There's always good interaction in our chat.
That's great.
So one of the other things that was shared this week is kind of just some concept art, which really I was jazzed about, was this picture right here. And we can see what's on the back end of that. We've got an Opod and we've got 3 Amways. To me, that tells me that this is a Visa ship. What do you guys think this is?
Yeah, I think it's. I heard someone mention they thought it was Commander. I think this is capital size. I think this is a capital size version of something within the Ooster line.
Yeah, for sure.
Specifically,
it does look small, that Visus on the tip. And my question about this is, does that back stay open like that when it's traveling? Like that, it doesn't seem very efficient. Perhaps it's open in like a transport mode where you can get ships out more easy.
Yeah, well, think about aircraft carriers. That you just have. If your whole goal is the ability to transport a fleet like this, then I could see it remaining open.
Yeah.
What's the size of ship up from medium? Is it just large?
Yeah.
So I tend to disagree. I think this is a smaller ship than we think it is based on what we're seeing with it. Well, the OPOD's pretty big. So relatively speaking, compared to a Capital or even a Commander, it seems like you might only, based on the angle, you might only be able to fit an OPOD on the outside and maybe some of the Amways on the inside.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
here's the
what we know
consideration.
about large is that Calico Guardian and Calico Hero fit together, so that scale is not too bizarre.
Yeah. So as a capital size ship, so what do we know about the Visus OPOD? It's 20 meters in length. And so what do we think that this vessel's about 10, 15 of those? And so we see capitals in the range of 300 or so. So it kind of fits a capital.
The Oracle has spoken.
Yeah, the Midas Touch has spoken. PG says 100%. And I think it's probably safe to say he's going to own one by the time it rolls out.
Yeah, I think we're right on that.
And I like how you can see the two humans at the tip of them with their shadows right next to the Visus. So it's a great for scale purposes. It's a little two dots.
I think I agree more with Fancy, though. I think I would be happier if in deep space this would close up, because the analogy with the aircraft carrier, they're not really dealing with like going through asteroid fields and like.
But you don't have any drag in deep space, so it's not like you have stuff blowing off the.
Yeah, it would be quite easy to like get some clamps on the floor, so it like locks onto their feet or buckled.
Well, I'm not talking about losing them. I'm talking about like things maybe crashing in, like damaging them that wouldn't be protected by the outer ship.
That's true. Yeah.
But if you actually had it open like that, you could actually have ships locked down that also become other sources of gunning power.
Firepower, right? Yeah.
100%. I think it does retract if there was no ship. So I think it's gonna be something that's able to come outwards, because on the back end you see that big gap on the bottom of the back end of it. So I think that portion that's in the mid to front end is what kind of sits back there. So now it's a full on like a shell, like a clam type of situation going on. I don't think it might close completely, but this is, if you can equate it to a tongue coming out of a mouth, and that's what it kind of looks like to me. And
as I think about it now and look at it a little bit differently, I was saying as a clam, it probably wouldn't make sense to me, but if that bottom piece slid forward and up, then that makes complete sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the challenge with that top coming down around where that ship would be is you can see those jets sit underneath that clam.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, either way, I think they need some lines there. That's like very inefficient. You could get on there easily.
Either way, fix the damn ship.
I hope you developers are taking notes.
Yeah. Rome shipbuilding
shut down by the Metaverse Nomads, the expert engineers.
AKA in the foundation one, we want a video of how this operates, just like it did with the other ships.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think it's flying above? Do you think that's like a part of the mining system, this
like
spaceship?
Yeah, I think it's a space station.
Yeah.
I just got to say, I think the Visus is my second favorite line. I'm a big fan of the rainbows, but I like the Visus as well.
I think that
I like the Amway, the OPOD, and that one that we just looked at. All three of these are beautiful.
I think the OPOD still remains pound for pound the best ship in the entire fleet for what you can get, for how much it costs and what it does. I think that it is still the ship to beat. If I could only have one ship and I had a price range to work with and I wanted to be the most efficient, I think it's this one still.
What's interesting is it's because it's such a popular ship and it's gone up in value. It's got one of the worst returns if you buy it right now. I mean, the people who bought it at the initial launch, it's great, but otherwise, I mean, it's right there at the bottom with a 59.8% APR right now.
As far as there's class and size, right? It's like the worst one for its size, isn't it? Yeah, it's the worst one for its size by far.
Well, what's interesting is, and I know we have some Guardian owners here, is the Calico Guardian has gone up so much. It's tripled in price. So its APR is down, but you get the appreciation off it, right? So, I mean, you're making your money. You've probably made more money in appreciation than you would in Atlas for a year.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, thanks for the correction that in the comments there about the length of the opod's actually 44 meters. It's 20 meters tall, but so 44 in length. When we look at that ship, if it was 10 of those, then that ship looked like it was probably in the neighborhood of almost 500 meters long. The big one that this was sitting on, but this is 44 meters in length.
So go back to that Busan. Was that Fancy who had that up?
Yeah.
We know we had the announcement of 3 Titan ships at the town hall this year in FY22, and we know that this is one of them, and we now know it's an ONI ship. So what do you guys think about the Dutch auction and the Busan Last Stand of the Titans?
I was having a conversation about this with one of the guys in MMA, and my thoughts on it are that I think it's too soon for this ship to come out this year. I don't think it's needed. I think that as we establish, just kind of like I was talking about, you got to seed the economy. You also have to seed the gameplay between factions. If you immediately come out and drop these massive titans immediately, you automatically and instantly define who is the top gangster in every faction, and that becomes difficult to change. I think it should be something, let everyone establish their place. It's kind of like the best analogy I have is I used to raise African cichlids, and I'd have them in a tank. And the way you add new fish is you have to stir up the whole tank, and they thought it was new territory. So I think that as we're establishing territories and dominance in the different factions, work with the existing ship lines rather than just put this big thing in there that's just going to go around the big swinging, thing all throughout.
And to your point, for a lot of members in the community for Star Atlas via the various guilds, we're not against having one of these, right? So we would love to have one right out the gate to maybe just position ourselves just like every other guild. Even in the Twitter space, Ash was saying, or people were talking of the heads of other guilds were saying that this is a great opportunity for a lot of people to then start working on the ship more or less, where big VCs, they want this ship, and then they'll delegate the responsibility of managing it to one of those through Star Atlas, right? And the team in Wagner, they would give this ship essentially to a list of the most reputable guilds in the space, and then that VC would then choose which guild they would want this ship to then be custodied by, and then operate out of, and you. So the idea is great, where there's a website where you could check all the guilds, and then whoever's the most out there in the front of the line, whether it's marketing or the one who has the most money, it might be not the greatest choice for a VC, but what do they only care about is the return. So as long as whatever guild they choose gives that return, then they'll opt to buy this Titan or to take part in the reverse auction and then acquire the ship. And then through the suggestions or the opinions of the team of Star Atlas, because it's not like a VC is going to buy this ship and then say, okay, I'm going to go on a obscure website that shows guilds, and then I don't know, all I'm doing is a top 5 leaderboard. It takes time and a lot of effort to learn to know what systems are at play, if this ship can be taken care of in the way where the returns are going to be lucrative for these VCs. So just like just is saying, it's going to definitely I guess fracture even more.
Oh, we lost Ray.
You cut out, Ray. You still there?
Hey,
so right quick. Before we move on, I wanted to go back to what Jesse was saying, because he made a good point, I thought. So we know that Star Atlas is taking the economics of this game very seriously. I think it's also equally important to take the politics of this game just as seriously. So I played a game called Ark Survival back in the day. And in the initial phases of the game, there were power struggles, and entire servers were dominated by particular what we call tribes in that game. And then nobody else could move on those servers. So tribes had their own servers, basically. And then they opened up the maps a bit, and then the tribes learned how to dominate multiple servers. And so this goes back to what you're saying, Jesse. You're talking economically about how you have to seed an economy. You also have to seed it politically. You have to allow political dynamics to kind of flourish. And if you allow for, and this is going back to, when the club bought all those C11s, when you allow for certain guilds to gain a serious advantage prior to actual gameplay, you're going to allow for the game to, in a way, just be dominated and kind of fall apart without you adding an expansion. Now you're going to be forced to add an expansion in, you know, as opposed to just allowing the gameplay out.
I'm torn a little bit with the Titans. On one hand, I know the dev team needs funding, right? They want to get up to 400 people this year. They need capital to do that. I would prefer them to do it through selling than VC money. But at the same time, you're going to have this Titan-sized dick going right through the Atlas distribution system. And they've been talking about how we can use, you know, Star Atlas can help the little guy empower to the people and make them generated income. But when you drop a Titan into something like fleet management and staking and Atlas distribution, you're guaranteed to drop everybody's net earnings down as soon as that happens.
Well, here's a consideration is like, it's not as influential to their earnings as you might think. So let's say that each of these 5 ships sold for $5 million in a Dutch auction. That's $25 million. There were 60 million in ship sales in December alone. So you could still raise that by still spreading out the influence and the power amongst a lower class of ship across a wider range of people. And I think that's healthier to the environment as a whole.
Yeah, I like the idea they're doing 1 per faction. So I think they're only doing 3 in FY22. They might do more. I would have liked to have seen that have been a community project where they build to something that opens up a Dutch auction, maybe to kind of build some camaraderie between the different people within the factions. And maybe there's still room for that. And we still don't know what it's going to look like. I just, you know, we're not fans of backdoor deals. And we've had some things to say about that. I hope it's not this big grand backdoor deal that happens. And then all of a sudden they drop it on the community.
Well, there's one other consideration with the large Titans, and that is this: unless there is a specific plan for how you will use this, rather than just going around doing whatever you want, and unless it goes against making this massive amount. If we hold true to the 8 to 10 to 12% range, then if you bought it for $5 million, does that mean you're making, you know, $500,000 a month return? Because if you're not, and that's not the form of gameplay that these Titan ships are going to produce in return and early on, you have to consider these things are probably going to be in the neighborhood of 10, 20, 30, maybe even up to $50,000 a month in maintenance just to keep this thing going. This is a beast. It's a big ship.
That's a great point, Jesse. And I think what that does to the DAO, as far as the Polis DAO and distributions from the 4Rs, that might be the way that the money starts to move differently through the metaverse. I think that's a great point.
Another great point is Tilquin talking about the Scarab Gate in World of Warcraft. If you're not familiar with that, it's when a server got to the period that Anchorage was unlocked, I believe. And like everyone had to grind out thousands and thousands of materials to complete quests. And it would take all of this like work as a community to unlock the raid. So yeah, I can see how that would be like the similarity between a Titan, how it'd be better to make people earn it instead of just dropping it on them. Like that was one of the most iconic raids that they've done, and people talk about it still.
It becomes a gameplay milestone, kind of like we were talking about, you know, the gates, the jump gates. It becomes this thing now that as a guild, you have people aligning their resources and their effort towards something. I think that's a great idea.
And we talked about this with other games.
One second, Bonafide. Not only that, it's a great way to pull resources out of the system, too. If you start to have some bloat in certain resources, it's a great way to burn it all.
Also, we've talked about this in other games, right? Is that when you get to certain points with these asset levels, you're going to have the chance that you're going to have, like I think you were mentioning, Banjo, a corporate entity decide to take advantage of that. And what does that look like for the game as far as the politics and the guild that they choose to run it, or if they don't have a guild run it, or how it all plays out? And these are all things that they're very tricky, and it might be better just to go at it organically, you know?
Well, to that end, Bonafide, you know, and we've talked about this behind the scenes. Ray, we did hear you. We'll get to you in 1 second. The idea that an investor can come in and just drop 10 million on something, get a return, is one thing, but the idea that you might drop 10 million and need somebody to actually play the asset to actually get the return is a different thing. And I hope it's the latter.
And also you have to deal with like economic like leakage from the economy, right? Like, because you have this thing that's basically creating a whole lot of sell pressure on Atlas. Where's that Atlas going to go? Is it going to go into Polis like some of us who are more into the game are going to do, or into more ships, or is it going to go completely out of the ecosystem, drawing value out?
Yeah. That should be a concern overall, that like, what are the things that can come in from outside of the existing environment and be immediately disruptive? I think that is something, hopefully, that they're weighing and measuring along the way, because to be blindsided as an entire community by a VC capital coming in and buying a freaking Titan and saying, "Hey guys, I'm here." You know, I don't know if that kind of disruption actually serves the overall project.
Yeah, especially this early in the game. From what I'm thinking, did my speech go through of my thoughts on how a Titan?
You cut out.
Cut out.
Yeah, just as you was finishing.
Okay, so I think that the end part of that was a Titan, because you could always go to a website and look at the top leaderboards of who a VC might want to give that Titan to, from maybe the suggestion of a member of Star Atlas. But in my opinion, it would be great to have, and this is just an idea, of having everyone being able to build a Titan ship as we go. And the ones that are the guilds that are the most structured and organized and capable of doing such a task would then be the ones that should appeal to a VC, because there's that confidence in the structure of the guild that they're choosing, versus just how much money is in one versus the other, or how many members are in one versus the other. Because it comes down to efficiency, and just because there's high numbers of members or money, doesn't necessarily mean that the operations or the taking care of a ship of that size, depending, the VCs just want that return, like I said earlier, and if they can get it, great, but the risk is always there. And I think that would be great before having them just have Titans come onto the scene, like Jess was saying, stirring it up and then making those definite lines between who will and who won't be, I guess, the powerhouses when it comes to, I guess, Titan ships. But yeah,
there's a pretty interesting conversation going on in our chat regarding some things that were said in the town hall and the Twitter space that I think are worth talking about. And, one of the developers made a reference to Stellaris, which is what he kind of thought the game will look like initially, before we get to the first person perspective. And I think we kind of talked about it at the beginning of the podcast of grand strategy versus first person. And I think we kind of expect that, right? I mean, we're building layers upon layers. And I think anything that gets us more and more immersed into the game with each iteration is going to be, and as long as there's value added to it, I think it's going to be great. And then one of the other comments that I think we all have an agreement on is the high risk zone being like nullsec and Eve. And I think we all have that expectation. It's going to be dangerous. There's going to be lots of money won and lost in nullsec. And I think Eve players, that we've talked about this, I think Eve players are going to have, some success initially in Star Atlas in the high risk zone.
Well, they just have experience. Yeah. So Chipto did a tweet about a day ago where he was saying that high risk zones will be similar to nullsec. We are definitely looking at Eve as a source of inspiration and have some veteran Eve players on the dev team. I don't know if they mentioned they had Eve players on the dev team before.
That makes me happy. Yeah. I'm actually excited about that, because the franchise Eve specifically has been successful for many years, and it's kept its
one of the most successful
engaged
in the space. Yeah,
it was groundbreaking. It's a pioneer. I mean, it showed us what the influence and what the overall scheme of being in space and being able to use political influence, to use monetary influence, all of these things. I mean, like, I know there's a period of time for us as consuls that run Rome, we were talking about the different books, and I've listened to some audio books that talk about Eve stuff. I mean, imagine the fact that there's a game that there are books written about how the gameplay unfolded and how serious it got and how there was massive takeovers, and it's just insane when you think about it. So I think that is the bar, and there's so much to be learned from what happened within Eve that if you dismiss that, you're making a big mistake. So I'm happy to hear that they have people that are in the know about Eve on the team giving feedback.
Yeah, I'm glad we all did that. We all kind of took it seriously when we made the move over to Star Atlas. We all started looking into and sharing amongst each other a lot of research as far as Eve, because you have all that length of history to go back through. And I think we all gained a lot of value for it. It's interesting to see that a lot of the theory crafting we did based off of that research is actually coming to fruition. So it's and now we find out that they actually have Eve players on the dev team. So yeah, it's all coming together. This is going to be pretty exciting because from what I said from day one was that if they are like Eve was one of the most huge games ever, and it didn't have crypto, that the element where you could easily move from their economy into the real world economy. But they're going to actually, like I've called Axie as its own ecosystem, its own country essentially. So you're going to have a similar thing with Star Atlas, but possibly much bigger.
Yeah, I agree. And if anyone here knows the name of some of the books, feel free to share them here, either in chat or on top. But somebody also said in the comments, if you're not ready for a guild like Goonfest in Star Atlas, and I'm paraphrasing, you probably should understand what they were, because everyone, well, I shouldn't say everyone. There's a lot of people who think it's going to be kumbaya in the metaverse. And we know that it's not going to be kumbaya. And Eve is a great example of how human nature shows up in this type of space.
Yeah, the book that I was speaking about in particular is called Empires of Eve. And it's a history of the great wars of Eve online. And it is actually, it's not you're just like going, whoa, what? That happened? It's pretty good.
Yeah. I'm so excited to see how it turns out. And I know we will be we collectively within the Star Atlas universe will be creating new stories that match that, because I think the same intrigue is going to happen, the same loss, the same emotional states. It's all going to be recreated. And when you tie it to money, that makes it elevated so much more.
Oh, we're going to make history. This game and the players, it's all going to be historical, especially when you think that because it's in the metaverse, and this is possibly going to be one of the building blocks of the metaverse, it's not going to go away. It'll be living on the blockchain historically forever. Yeah. So act accordingly and, act with honor, I would say, unless you're going to be honorably deceitful, and like a pirate or something like that.
Yeah. A couple of other things that were mentioned, and maybe you guys can think of some that haven't been mentioned, but in the town hall and the Twitter spaces, is they mentioned that Star Atlas is working on physical apparel that will be tied to in-game NFTs that your crew might wear. And there might be some other things coming. They're going to get into the convention circuit, which I think we're all excited about, because collectively all of us would love to go to a convention and meet these people. Welcome back, Ray.
Thank you.
Was there anything else from Twitter Spaces or the town hall that stood out to you guys that we haven't discussed?
Yeah, there's a couple pictures we can look at. So this was dropped today on just like in the social media channel, and I find it quite interesting. Just the colors made me initially think it was Calico Evac, but I'm not too sure anymore. What do you guys think about this picture?
Well, you know what I thought was interesting about that picture is the smallest words above it all, and it says Interplanetary Republic. So I don't know if that means it's the Council of Peace, or if this is a faction. We've talked in the past about how we thought Pierce was kind of be the police of the safe space and maybe an NPC type of presence. But this is the first time I think we've seen Interplanetary Republic.
The thing that strikes me when I look at this image is that the detail that has gone into this, down to the different textures and the raised section and the part that looks like it's carbon fiber down underneath it, is that the details are so precise that it looks as if you were to walk up alongside of this in real life. That's what you would expect to see. There wouldn't be anything missing. The details look like they're completely there. And so if we're able to do this now in game in Unreal Engine 5, we are so early on. I always referenced back to the fact that Pong was 47 years ago with two paddles and a ball, right?
So were we.
Yeah. And so based on all of that, man, the things that we have to look forward to. Yes, the references to Stellaris, which is a 4X space strategy game, makes sense in some regards because early on, we're not going to have the immersion. But this right here leans towards the immersion that we will experience within the next 3 to 5 years. This is amazing to me.
Yeah, and so one thing about this picture, I said I didn't think it was a Calico evac. So if you look at it, it goes white, red, white, and I can't really see anywhere on the Calico evac that would make sense, really.
Yeah,
because it goes from red to white, unless there's like a period underneath. But I'm not too sure if it is from the same ship. But it also has.
What's interesting is what it says underneath the number as well on that picture.
Could it be a module instead of a ship? Could it be a module or a component?
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Can you go to the up close on that, Fancy?
Yeah, there you go.
So this basically says for gravitational emergency, call this number, which to me sounds like a rescue of some sort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
But I still say that it could be a module. I mean, maybe this is when you had that other shot, we did see a capsule. So I was thinking, well, maybe is it a part of a capsule? But if not, we see 3.5 meters maximum gravitational attraction, something like that. So it doesn't sound like it's that big of whatever it is. So it could be a component or a module for a ship.
So the first question we asked Chipto if we get him on is, what is maximal gravitational attraction, right?
Yeah, so this also has 7 on the side, and the Calico evac has number 2 quite clearly. Like, I think it has been said these are filler numbers, but I'm not sure if they would put different numbers on the same ship.
Okay, so let's suppose for a moment that it is a new ship in the Calico line that hasn't been introduced yet. And it's interesting that red and white, the only things we've seen red and white are rescue based. So what else might it be? Because they have those colors, they have red, black, and white. All of the other colors of Calicos have either been white or they've been black. They've been like these dull colors unless they serve a purpose of rescue or some type of service like that. So that's what leads me to think that this has to fall in that category. But what else might it be, just from a theory crafting standpoint?
I'm guessing like a fighter. Those at the top look like intake or outflow valves, so it'd be going fast, I assume.
Well, to me, if the evac is the big ship, to me this is a littler ship that goes out and collects those little pods. Maybe it has the ability to attach 1 pod or 2 pod underneath it. Going back to the 3.5 meters that we saw. And maybe there's going to be multiple sizes of evac type ships. So
if you can't tractor beam, that might be a kind of a tighter squeeze, and in a field of of debris, you might need something else to go in and get it. Huh.
Yeah, you don't send a semi to move just one pallet of stuff, right? I mean, send the smaller ship.
Yeah. And someone else had an interesting thing. Maybe you have those individual containers for those capsules, but maybe there's a lifeboat where you can put a few people in it.
Yeah. Well, it stands to reason that will be the case on some of the capital ships, right? From a resource perspective, it doesn't make sense for each pod to have its own person.
Right.
You do lifeboats.
So apparently the compact hero is 4, so maybe it's bigger.
Okay. All right.
I swear I heard something in Foundation or on Twitter that the numbers were fillers and they don't identify anything yet, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, 04.
Have we seen a number on the Guardian?
That's a number 4.
Right quick, not to derail us at all, but shout out to Data in the chat. Hello to you all from Argentina. I just got time to tune in. Shout out to all our South American friends. Data is part of the crew that Kojisan NFT that was just with us brought to the Guild Rome. And it's glad to have all of you guys here.
Yep.
Indeed.
So this has 606 written on it. So yeah, not sure. Maybe they just pick in favorite numbers.
Yeah, but you see all the bland colors, like for this one and for the hero. That's when you see that bright red. I'm like, it seems to be a service type vehicle, something like that.
Well, we've talked about this on past podcasts, how in current day modern world, naval ships will do the all white and red as a way of marking themselves as a hospital ship and not being a military vessel. So maybe that's the kind of vibe they're trying to build out.
Someone in the comments a while back here did mention they got racer vibes from it. I don't remember who that was, but maybe that would be, if Calico had a contribution to racing, which is another piece of the puzzle that we haven't heard much being talked about through Score, through More, through Cream now. And it would seem to me that one of the first pieces that would probably be easiest to release as a part of people being actively involved in the process would be racing. You can put a fence around that. You only have to have so much in play rather than having this big open world. So who knows? Maybe each of the ship manufacturers will have their own entry as a racer.
And that might be part of Project Rose Garden, right? Maybe that's the 6 to 8 modules that they're going to be including there. And I know we have a number of people in the guild who are really excited around the idea of racing as a career.
Yeah.
So anything else we want to, or Fancy, go ahead, man.
Yeah. This was a video I found this week. It was released by a guy who's done the thing similar to this before. So it didn't say Star Atlas or anything like that on it, but he has worked on Star Atlas assets before. They're in his portfolio.
Even if it's not Star Atlas, and this is the quality of what we see when we get to the first person, this is just, it's awe-inspiring, right? I mean, if that's the quality of you flying your ship through
you see the people walking there on the left side because they're really tiny, but it gives perspective to scale.
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And the little ship that comes
now,
out.
What is the inside of this? Like, what are we inside of? Do we know?
We don't know. We don't even know that it's. I don't even think there's nothing here that suggests to me it's Star Atlas related. But I like it as a point of reference as to what in game in Unreal Engine 5, what the experience could be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And if you're listening right now and you haven't gone on YouTube to kind of look at what Unreal Engine 5 does across different game types, you got to check it out. Just search Unreal Engine 5 in-game footage, and you'll see some amazing things. I mean, it's going to take gaming on all platforms to the next level.
They just did some crazy stuff on Matrix that was released on YouTube. You can go look up pretty easily.
Yeah, another thing to look up as it relates to that, just to give you a sense of the realism, is metahumans. The places we're going now with what you can do with facial twitches and things that you just get this sense of, wow, that even though this could be an NPC, you get all of the emotions and all of the signals of actually engaging a human.
Yeah, I'm glad it really shows how ambitious they are, really, because even Illuvium is on Unreal Engine 4.26, I think.
Right.
I'm glad you brought that up, Jesse, because we talked earlier about sharing some of the comments from our YouTube videos, and there was one specifically that talks about metahumans. So let's just bring those up right now. We'll start at the bottom. Last week we talked about porn driving the metaverse. And somebody gave us a comment that says, MetaHero's photorealistic 3D scan of a person, which we know, and it's very lifelike. Use AIs and you can kind of spin yourself up. Now, aside from the porn angle, you could actually bring your avatar to any metaverse if we can get this really going, where, you can go into some clothing stores and scan your body and it tells you what clothes you wear, or you should wear, where you go in and scan your body and now you have a personal avatar within the metaverse. But if you think about it, this with VR and this and various other devices that I'm sure they'll create, thanks, Chris, for the comment. I bet you didn't think this is the one we were going to pull up, but anyhow, we know that this stuff is coming. And now instead of OnlyFans, we'll have like girlfriend AI fans, right?
Right.
Yeah, bikini Twitch streamers, get ready. There's
There
a
you
whole new
go.
world for you guys.
I don't even know what that is, Ray, so I'll just trust you on
Okay.
that
Well, just for a brief explanation, there's females who are just dressing provocatively with the bikinis and just live streaming themselves, either playing games or talking about answering questions. It's like a OnlyFans page, but more public
Right.
than behind a website and a paywall. But people just subscribe and give money to just get their questions answered.
So we can add that to our marketing as Metaverse Nomads swimsuit edition, right?
Brothel girls. Okay.
But the top question is actually. Oh, sorry, Jesse. Go ahead, man.
No. It's related. We don't have to go directly into this, but just as a placeholder, Wagner mentioned clothing by apparel line by Star Atlas. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah.
We don't have to address that immediately, but that seems to be something that I heard. So it's not just the realism within the game. Now even into the physical world, it seems that there will be some clothing coming forth.
We're seeing that a lot as far as across the metaverse, as far as people being able to interact with something in the metaverse and get it in real life. Mm-hmm. You're seeing people talking about being able to order drinks and food and clothing, like you were just talking about with the 3D rendering of your body. Imagine you go to a store like a Nike store, or whatever. You pick out your shoes, you try them on, they come to your house based off your actual blueprint of what your feet look like. I mean, it's pretty interesting.
Well, I think for a certain subsection of people in the real world who still benefit from this, there's extraordinarily beautiful men and women in this world, right? So they get the perks of that. They're going to probably want to scan their body and be seen in the metaverse, either directly or by selling their scan. But there's the 1 through 6s that want to be somebody else, right? So I don't see everybody going in and scanning themselves, because it's a little bit of an escape for people to not be represented the way they look in the real world. But the more serious question, and I think it's a great thing to discuss, is about insurance. And we've touched on it a little bit in the past, but it's a great question for people who are putting their assets into the high risk zone. And are any of you engaged with like DeFi insurance programs? And do you see a avenue for insurance within the metaverse?
Yeah, I'm not, and I've given thought to what I think that looks like. Because and I say this coming from a world of in business where I do a lot with algorithms, mm-hmm. and that's what you deal with insurance. It's kind of like, how do you mitigate risk? Like if you are, think of it on the side, if you're the insurance carrier, like if you're going to insure someone's ship for deep space, what are the rules? Mm-hmm. Because if you don't have those rules, then what is to stop a person from going out to deep space, getting attacked, their ship gets destroyed, someone comes and salvages the resources from that ship, and they split the difference later because they're covered by insurance.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that happens in the real world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think all of us have probably had some people we know who maybe have taken advantage of that type of system. And I think what will be really interesting is right now.
With, Banjo?
Well, I have a long, varied life. But the thing that's interesting to me in regards to this is initially it's going to be people who don't know what they're doing, right? People who do a loan on a DeFi platform or take insurance out on a DeFi platform. But once the big business gets in, the real insurance companies with the actuarial scientists who really understand how this stuff works, then we're going to start to see some really interesting things. And the unfortunate thing to me is it seems like that's more corporate encroachment into the metaverse, but it almost seems like you can't stop it. It's going to happen.
Well, going back to, one of the comments that we had in the chat earlier, it's too far back now to bring it up, but somebody was talking about, privacy and decentralization. And, these companies that pursue that and push that are going to be able to avoid that heavy corporate government influence on their product, on what they've created in the metaverse. The companies that maintain control or don't take decentralization seriously enough, like I've seen like G-Host from Axie mentioned that he didn't think that the players really wanted a whole lot of decentralization. Well, that's a danger, because those of us from the cyberpunk communities and stuff like that, we all believe that the government's going to come after you at some point, and it's not about if, it's about when, and if you're going to be ready for it or not, if you're going to be sufficiently decentralized to where they can't shut you down or not, or so that you don't get bought out by Meta, Facebook or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Well, and I think we'll talk more about this in the future as we start to see the actual programs come online. But I think it's really something to think about, especially if you're a high value investor who's going into these medium or high risk spaces. But just know, if you are a listener and you have questions and comments, we do scan, we do pay attention to what you're saying. We do try to reply. But also know that none of us collectively within the Metaverse Nomads would ever try to sell you anything in our comments, or ever try to ask you for personal information in our comments. And if that happens, it's not us. YouTube is known for having people who like to scam and do stuff in chat, or in comments, and just know that we won't do that.
Thanks for bringing that up, Banjo, because I just saw one of our, I don't know if it's our first, but I just saw one of our first bots in chat about an hour ago when we were talking. And so that's definitely starting to come to our channel as well. It's on all the other crypto YouTube channels you guys might follow. So yeah, just know that we don't want your money. And if anybody ever messages you saying that they're one of us and they want your money, it's not us. 100%.
Yeah, that's not the avenue we would use. If there was some sort of investment opportunity, it'd be done a different way. But I think we are done now with Star Atlas. I think it's time to move into some Axie stuff. Ray's might be having a little bit of a technical issue, but let's see if we can get it going. Ray, passing it over to you, man.
Cool. I'll just go ahead and share my screen here. How's my audio? Is it choppy?
Sounds good.
You sound good now.
Okay, great. So what I'll do here is just take this off, just so that there's an ease of there's less strain on the system here, for what it's worth. But on the Axie front, there's been a patch update, 1.1.2, and there's various videos explaining in much more detail than this, but they gave a little pictograph of what they're introducing. And we have Axies will stand now instead of float or fly. So if you ever were playing the game, everyone has their own preference and might have gotten used to them flying. But I like the fact that they're on their feet. And if you ever played the land demo last December, the battles that took place on land, if you got into Chimera battles, you were on your feet. So that's when they were first introduced, and I tend to like it personally. And then also there's mass decline friend requests and block spammers. So this was something that was another little update that was well needed, because you have to physically, manually, just like in your Discord messages from all the spammers or people you don't want messaging you, there's an option now other than just manually doing one by one. And then here we go. We got the new CAPTCHA system to improve bot resistant measures. So this one by far is the most intricate one, where you have to rotate via the left and right rotate buttons to get this Axie right up. So facing straight up with, head to the ceiling, feet to the ground. And we'll see how these bots grow over time to deal with these types of preventative measures by the team. But these are also along with those photos that for the patch 1.1.2. So you got opponent card counter is working again. So that was a discrepant, something was going on there. Add a visual for the Scarab's debuff. So that's a particular move that prevents you from healing. And there wasn't a actual sign above the Axie's head, which notified anyone that was something that was a debuff currently on the Axie, as there is for poison or a speed buff or attack debuff based off of the card effects. And then SOP in the inventory will show correct pending token numbers, because there was it wasn't accurate and you would have to go log in. And so these are all great things that just make the flow and the experience of Axie Infinity that much better for what it's worth. And player names will sync with the name displayed on the marketplace, which is fantastic, because there was a whole bunch of problems, even myself, when I was doing a whole bunch of brokering, reaching out to buy lands from people who own them. It was pretty rough to just get to know who is in the Discord versus the account owner of the assets on the marketplace. and then you would have to reach out to more than one person at a time to just like, hey, do you know this person? Could you search for this person? It was pretty hard, but you had to do what you had to do. And then they fixed insufficient permission bug. Which all these fixes for corrupt Axie image bugs on the marketplace are great because there was just a bunch of just different Axies that were there, not whether auctioned, getting stuck, not being removed, thinking that you can still buy them. These are all quality of life updates that just save you a lot of time when it comes to doing a lot of what you would do if you're playing Axie Infinity or in the marketplace buying and selling. So fix the bug that was causing disconnections in the last round, which was a big ass problem. It was pretty frustrating because at the last round, if you were winning, you couldn't even play your cards, and it would just you would just lose the round over time and not be able to do anything. So that's fantastic. And it wasn't the craziest issue. It didn't happen as often, but it was happening, and I'm glad it's fixed. So here we go. Just 2 days later from just what I just finished talking about with the patch update, which this was yesterday, as I took this, this is in the Discord announcements. So we have, the development update is live. So the link you can check out on their Discord announcements page or on their main Twitter. And you got the Sky Mavis team welcome the 100th, their 100th team member. So as we talked about earlier in the beginning of the show, we have, the team is growing, and just like Star Atlas, there's different groups of people working on different parts of the game, as it explains in the actual document, the website for the development update. Progress on Origin Land continue to hum along. And there's going to be an Origin alpha test launch coming in the months, and then the Ronin is still operating and huffing and puffing under the table as far as it being $1 billion plus worth network, not even fully live, and where you can still liquidity provide for the token, which are going to be what you sign off transactions for. And just last year, 15% of all transactions went through Ronin, compared to any other seconding or being second to Ethereum as far as transaction, and then also for 1 or 2 months being the most transacted network, defeating or being first compared to Ethereum. So for what it's worth, no other first layer one ever did that. So we'll see when it goes live, and it should be February. Here we go. What's going on here? Yeah, so it should be in February. February 4th is when the liquidity providing ends for that. So if you ever wanted to get any, you could liquidity provide AXS and SLP versus come with ETH to do that. And then there was an introduction to Booba, who is we have the description there, but he is going to be. It seems to be. Yeah, he's going to be one of these characters, NPCs, that help teach you about the game and its story along the way for adventure mode, and then for when the land game comes out, which is pretty cool. And the team is releasing more information within the last month. I think also because there's going to be an immediate update taking place as we're coming into the lunar year, February 1st, and there was tweets by Jiho himself saying prepare, which we'll get to, for something coming. He said get rest. But here we have names that are dropping for these characters and these photos for art updates, or for the new art that's coming into play here. So this is just Wooly, and maybe another NPC that's going to teach you and help you along your way in Lunasia, or named Hope. I'm sorry, that's the sheep's name is Hope. And as we see here, we have Axie Infinity. Again, these are photos from the document. And so the development has been pushing full steam ahead with the target alpha test launch in the upcoming months. Here's some more in progress power-up art. So these would be essentially what the power-ups look like. And there wasn't a description for each one of them. So more art that's to come with the functionality of what these are. And here's since the last update, these are the 3D renderings of the items that they said they would share. So these are the mystic items that are going for a hefty Ethereum price on the marketplace, as these are mystic items. Then you have the Arctic and Forest and Savannah items, and they all have their ranking and price points similar to land. If you were ever interested, definitely go check out the marketplace just to get comfortable with how it works. And here are the items for the totem poles. This is just some more art from previous documents that they shared. And then this is a video that came along with, so it's going to be more action. And you could see here bug projectile. This is just more game footage of what it's going to be looking like. And we have a taunt top right, gives a description as it goes on. You got rage. So there's new animations. And so that was pretty neat, in my opinion. So again, some more things that we can see that the team is sharing. And then this I didn't share, but I wanted to make a point here with this photo. I didn't share it last time because I skipped my mind, but the reason why I would suggest buying Axes, where you're going to be able to have your own army and control it to do either kingdom, there's going to be kingdom building, there's going to be armies of Axes that you're going to be able to fight with one another. And this is an early prototype that they shared, is for those type of I'm going to call them mini games, as it's still in early development. But this is something that everyone was looking forward to for why everyone's having so many Axes. So the syncs and how you're going to be able to either trade your Axes in, or to you could fuse your Axes. Maybe these are all speculative things that are going to be multiple syncs or added syncs to your Axes, and also requiring SLP. So Jiho down here says get some rest could be an important week. Definitely, you wouldn't say that unless something was actually ready to go, and then you build anticipation for that. But here we go. This was pretty interesting with Joe Rogan. He had on his show. I'll play it here and let me know if you hear the audio. I thought it was hilarious. It's more of a, let's see.
What do you make of the whole Axie Infinity and all these? It's like this whole other universe.
Yeah, the audio is working.
This is one of the most profitable.
This website right now, Jamie, is what? Axie Infinity?
Axie Infinity.
I've never heard of it either.
Yeah, AXIEinfinity.com.
That's right. So it's got its own currency, and inside this universe, you can earn tokens.
Isn't it funny how they have scrolls like it's old timey? Meanwhile, it's the most fucking dystopian future you could ever imagine.
Yeah,
like Dungeons and Dragons.
That's
scrolls.
right. So it sort of feels like you're playing Pokemon, but there are real stakes. There's real money behind it, and people are making a living. Like if you're a 15-year-old in the Philippines, you can make $5 a day.
So will you gamble?
No, I think you earn.
I told you before, there's play to earn is a new thing taking over this space, if you will, and that's
look at that where it says 4.2 million total volume. What does that mean?
Today.
What does that mean?
That's how much has been exchanged on the marketplace today. $11,000, $32,000. Somebody bought one for 20 grand.
Metaverse type shit. Does someone have a lot that someone bought? Can you see it?
So it's just showing you that, and then you can get the details, history.
Yeah, there you go. Just think about the fact that we're at the precipice at the beginning of the second decade, the third decade of the 21st century or whatever, at the beginning of this whole evolution. It's almost like being at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, but it's a technological revolution. And all of these little things are popping up. Like we haven't even heard of them yet. It's like, what is a train? It's going to be incredibly tumultuous. And as soon as a Zuckerberg, gets his eyes set on, hang on. If that kind of money is being spent on this tiny little nothing game, how do I fold that into the metaverse?
So, yeah, what do you guys think about the clip?
I totally missed that. Now I got to go back and watch the whole thing because I totally missed the episode. I like how Jamie is like kind of grabbing the boomer by the hand there and bringing Joe Rogan. Like I told you, there was play to earn.
Like when are you gonna actually listen to me?
It's always fascinating seeing that outside perspective. Like if you know nothing about what's going on in the metaverse, the stuff that we talk about every week, the stuff that we delve into daily, it's always interesting to see what mainstream's view is of the metaverse. And when you think about it, if we look at it through that limited lens, we'd be in awe too. Like, what the hell is going on over there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy the amount of crypto natives who completely don't get it still, or are suffering PTSD from past types of technological innovations based off of Bitcoin, to where they just completely don't trust it. I mean, the only one I had the chance to experience was the ICO boom, but prior to that, there were many different technological changes that happened based off of Bitcoin's technology, where there were, people who lost a whole lot of money. And so I think a lot of the OGs in the space are still kind of shying away from the idea of NFTs and play to earn gaming as another facet of, as Max Kaiser would say, another way to steal your Bitcoin. But I don't think that's where it's going at all. I think we're actually, like he was kind of mentioning, with trains and planes and automobiles, this is an innovation that's gonna last the test of time, because people are already playing these games. We just need the merger of the ability to transfer real assets back and forth, and that's what crypto does.
Chris brings up an interesting point here that, for a while there in Joe Rogan's studio, they had ISDN lines, they had network play for Doom. Now for him, I think the way you probably explained to him is, like, imagine you owned your assets in Doom, and that when you're out playing Doom, you could go around cleaning up and earning in the process.
Right. Yeah. So it just goes to show how early we still are. Shout out to Raw Mega. It's just like, as we just dig deep and stick our heads into the sand of what we know and how far along we're coming, we can get lost in just how early it still is for almost still everyone out there, including Joe Rogan, the one who's out there as far as the number one news outlet, beating CNN and every other mainstream media news outlet. So, but yeah, that was pretty much it. Some more art, so more is being released. And now that I think Joe might have had an impact on the price of AXS. It was up like 11% since yesterday. So that was nice for anyone who's been shopping and buying in at high 60s up to mid 70s for the last week and a half after the new year. So yeah, there's so much more room for growth and for exposure and for marketing, and they have the money to do it. So in my mind, it's a safe bet, like we were talking with Kojisan, for anyone who's wanting to get in early enough, whether it's through scholarship or just buying Axies at the cheap prices that they are now, in anticipation and speculation of how all of them will be utilized and have a value. So, take that for what you will. And that was it for the Axie coverage.
So here's an interesting thought about Axie real quick. So for me, for the longest time, I happen to fall in that category, as some projects do. You can't win them all. I mean, I bought at the high end. For me, I think I like the analogy, like, when do you go out digging for clams? At low tide. You don't do it at high tide. So that's probably a good thing to think about when you're in different markets. But Axie had momentum. I'm like, hey, maybe it's just going to keep going. What it's doing is interesting. They're a pioneer. So around August last year is kind of when I scooped up a bunch of teams, gained some scholars. Now I'm seeing that, first of all, the teams that I built around and I was breeding around are pretty heavily nerfed. SOP is way down low. So that makes me a little sour and bitter. But when I take a step back and I look at the project as a whole, I have to ask myself, okay, what can I buy a functional quality team for now? Well, the answer is about $200. It's not that much.
Super cheap. Yeah.
So if that's the case, and we know that, what is 100 SLP right now, that a person can make if you're splitting that with a scholar at 2 cents, ends up being like $20, it's, in other words, you're still within the realm of a 1-year ROI through that project based on what the current price is for purchasing through the marketplace, and even what the low end return. And I can't imagine it going lower. So yes, I like that comment next set. Yes, Whitaker's did FOMO in. Yes.
we all did. So we
not me.
Not me.
Well, yeah. I shouldn't say we all did. No, we all did. But several of us did. It was because at the time the breeding was making so much money.
It was.
And then, like I say, I mean, I did okay on the breeding. I think I right around broke even on that. But then I started FOMOing in because of the scholarships, and I was like helping the world and all my hippie stuff, And so that was the thing that drew me in, probably further than I should have gone at that point, because we were, like you say, Jesse, at a high at that point. And then so I stopped allocating in that direction for quite a while, and now we're so low. The market's so low. Somebody shout out to the chat. Somebody was just mentioning that we just had a 10% upswing in the price of SLP. So it's at about 2 cents right now. So it's up from the 1 cent that it's been grinding hard at for the last couple of weeks, right? But what I see is that people are still asking me to do scholarships. And like Jesse said, it cost me $200 to give a scholarship to a guy. If that's helping him out wherever he's at around the world, why not, right? What's actually doing right now? My final thoughts on that. I mean, I feel like it's their game to lose at this point. I mean, they have a lot going on. They have a lot of money. They've done very well. And the way that they're adjusting to, I think, a level of success that they didn't previously expect is admirable. I think they're doing all right. I haven't, I've taken issue with some of their actions in the past, but I think they're, moving forward. So, I'm over here buying a couple teams here and there for some guys that really deserve it or are connected to people that I know I can trust to help them and teach them about the game and help them to be successful. And that's working out well for me from a karma perspective, if nothing else. I wouldn't tell anybody else to go out and rush out and buy Axies right now with all the changes coming out. But, if you're doing it for altruistic reasons right now, it's not necessarily the worst idea.
Yeah, I think you mentioned this last week. I'm in a similar boat with my scholars where like this last pay period, I'm just like, hey, I appreciate you guys even sticking around at this low.
Yeah.
Here you go. Keep it all. Because it really, I mean, when you think about what you're splitting between each individual one, I mean, I'm just trying to do a good within this window of time where it's so low, where I'm like, just for sticking around, take it.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm giving bonuses to guys. I'm gonna start doing some prizes. I'm taking care of my managers a little bit better. I'm just just trying to basically build out my scholarship guild to make it strong. Just in case if Axie does come back or we roll into a different game, I have a nice little squad of guys that's ready and willing to play these games.
Yeah, and for the record, from my experience, which I've tend to believe now, the team, when they do say we want missionaries, not mercenaries, so they always had this cleansing period of detox whenever there was an official or a run up in price or in popularity. There was a curveball of the SLP craze. I mean the scholarship craze and blow up of that. But they always give time for people to lose faith who are not diamond hand type mindset personality types to then get out early and then start a new leaf or into the new year, right? Or whenever the new drop comes, there's a run up of anticipation and excitement for those who stood involved and in the know with what's going on or stood invested. So these cycles of we know of Bitcoin, whether it's the 4-year cycle, which might be ending, every other project is growing into maturity, right? More popularity. These things, there's cycles within the projects themselves and how the team evolves the project with either the money or the popularity, and how all the ebbs and flows of that. So I've been on the pulse of that for the most part of just over a year now, since like 2021 or 2020, the ending of 2020 up until now. And I see the patterns there. So that's why, although you got in at a high, it was for the most part of the year that everything was just high because of just the popularity with scholarship programs where everyone came in. But then just the other day, you could have bought Axies for like $25 a pop because there was someone listed or maybe a huge guild that said, F Axie now because of just not keeping up with the information and the prices. Just sold. It was almost like a bot did this and listed all these Axies for sale at like dirt cheap prices of like $25 to $30. And then you see on the Axie Infinity community Twitter space, everyone was like, hey, I happened to scoop up 5. I happened to scoop up 20. Wow, it was amazing. And these are the people who G-Host and the team want to
benefit,
to reap the rewards of, because they know that these are the community members that are going to stay around. Just like in Star Atlas and any other project, we're more confident in Star Atlas because we got in earlier than the people who are going to get in 2 years from now, when it technically is still early. But we're going to be the ones who are going to talk in a way, like I'm talking about Axie, that that is in more confidence than if we got in at the top. And then we're going to be like, well, it's still good, but I'm butthurt, and or I didn't get in, I should have, or all these like back and forth. But that goes with every project, depending on when you got in. And I just believe, based off of the evidence and what the team is doing to show that they care about what the community is saying, that there's much more room to grow and for everyone to benefit from for years to come. So
I think you're absolutely right, Ray. There's something to be said for taking the time to cleanse your community. We've seen it in certain games in the past. We've seen it in certain crypto products in the past where you have a lot of toxicity that builds up because of expectations being unreasonable or whatever, and the team taking the time just to kind of go ahead and purge that. And this is one of the many ways that you can use to do that, is just by allowing the project to kind of just sit at a lull for a bit, and people not see those quick 1 month, 2 week gains that they're used to in crypto and leaving. And that can be healthy. So no shade on that. Are we ready to move on to Alluvia?
Hell yeah.
Or do you have more? Okay.
Fancy. You got it, boy. Let's go.
Hey, yeah. So I'm not sure if we covered it last week. We did have quite a lot of Star Atlas things. Even we did today as well. But yeah, this is one of the pictures that was shared initially, and yeah, I think it's quite telling of how they want to play out the initial phase of whatever they want to release. This is going to be the little box that's going to be fully functional. So there's the esports arena over in the right, that crash ship, and all of these assets we've been getting little snippets of over the past couple months. So they're going to be building loads of different things for you to do in this island. And yeah, at the top it talks about region travel, so perhaps this is the center where you can go travel off to distant lands through the obelisk. That was great, guys.
Screenshot, I thought it was interesting how they're designating different entrances, whether you're a contester, whether you're a spectator, or the survival mode entrance. You've got these different ways to get in there, and they're in the arena.
Yeah, for sure. And these are assets we've been seeing pretty much every couple days because they release just so much. Their Character Leaks channel is like a chronicle of what they've been doing for the last year, with posts every day from all the different departments. And yeah, this is one of the latest things they've shown. This could be the massive esports arena inside that broken ship, perhaps, or
well, on that previous picture, Fancy, I don't know if anyone caught it in the bottom left. It looks like a coliseum, right? So that looks like a spectator area as well.
Yeah, this one kind of looks like it's inside, though. That's what I'm thinking. And that purple vibe, perhaps.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've been doing a lot of cool streams recently, walking around, just developing it as they go, and then uploading a 2-hour stream of it to YouTube. So they're just flooding people with content now. It seems like they have a lot ready to go.
So on that last slide again, if we go back to that, the first one. So do we think that, being that this is an island, it seems like, perhaps from a gameplay perspective, you might only have these options. You log in and you've got 4 places you can go. You go to the Sanctum in the middle, which is also the town square where you can purchase things through shops and stalls. I don't know what they mean by a cinema there, that you might be watching something. But then you've got the Leviathan arena, you've got the ranked arena. So again, 2 areas for combat. So this looks like it could be initially while we do know that there will be land in Alluvium, we know that there will be ways to go out and find your alluvials. Perhaps this is just a section where you're just going to do your battle, buy things, and then I guess I don't really know completely what the obelisk.
Yeah, so to me, one of the things they've been really showing is all the parkour you can do. So this is an old video, but it's not textured, but yeah, how would you be able to maneuver around an island so small doing things like this? You would have to go to the obelisk and then go to a transport to a location, which is its own place, I guess, and they could be added as you go. That's just my opinion, because I can't see.
Makes, from the crash ship, that parkour thing that you just did makes sense with the crash ship, like an arena with a lot of nooks and crannies to jump in and out of. I'm not so much for the I guess, tennis court type arena. But if they had a larger environment, that could make use of a lot of that different, movement style.
For sure. It seems like something they're really developing out and is getting smoother the more we see of it. But they are still doing like general just cleaning and things up and optimization, I guess it would be called. They released a couple videos as well this week. This is one of them. I forgot to remove music from it. And yeah, it's really cool. I'm not sure if you guys can hear me right now. Could you give me a thumbs up, bro?
We can hear you fine.
I can hear you.
So if you place your minions down, I'll let this play out.
The card mechanism seems disruptive for like an esports tournament.
It does, yeah. There's like waiting rounds in between where it waits for you to place. So perhaps if they depends how they do it, really. But yeah, that was quite cool. Any thoughts?
So it looked like teams of 6, and then each of the teams that they had on the different sides seemed to have had like their category, like Scion or whatever their particular ability was. What I didn't get was the connection between the cards and those different categories of team. Or was it such that when you placed a card, that's when it placed it and showed you what the different team members were? Is that right? 6 on 6 different categories, and those categories are based on the cards that are played?
I'm not sure if that's the maximum amount. You can get 9 in Teamfight Tactics. You can really fill the board out. But it's like really fleshed out system of different classes and synergies, and you'll be able to make unique builds of all the different alluviums you catch. And that I really enjoyed that gameplay, especially the way you place on that type of hex grid. It's not too controlling, really. You can put it anywhere, and it's not gonna like restrict you to certain types of placements. Yeah, it was quite a loud video. I thought I removed the sound.
Yeah,
I'll make sure to do that next time.
Element to what you would experience during gameplay. I mean, that's definitely a part of the overall experience. Someone mentioned earlier that they weren't a fan of the auto battling part of it, but I think that just is. I mean, if you're going to play anything that's card based, there's going to be a lot of under the surface rolling anyway. So I think you're going to get an element of that, and I think that's just the game model that is here. I'm interested to see how they incorporate the other aspects of it. Like, so you've got this battlefield arena thing going on here where you're playing with the cards, but then you have the other aspect where you're going out and you're hunting down your alluvials, and then you've got land that you're buying as well. It's going to be interesting to how the whole game world comes into play. And we're seeing that with other projects too, like even what with Axie's trying to create. It's going to be interesting to see how the overall world takes form as they try to incorporate all of these different aspects of gameplay.
Yeah, 100%. And I've got a couple more videos. I'm not sure if I muted those either, but here's a just photo for now. It's a feedback page about all like the different bugs you can report, and just that background. Wow.
Yeah, that is cool. Lush green.
Yeah, it does. Things are starting to look more fleshed out every week, and yeah, I got one more thing to play. This is like the end screen or the settings before you start the survival mode, which we looked at earlier, which is wave combat. So the stronger your team is, the more waves you can defeat, and I guess there's a prize at the end. But yeah, if they have, it looks like they have most things up and ready, because auto battling is an easy thing to develop for compared to like a Star Atlas type grand strategy game. So that is one of the advantages they have for them, and they're also building on Unreal Engine 4.26 or whatever the number is, but it matters because it's 4, and on Star Atlas is running on 5, so their developers are going to have more experience with that software, but it's not going to have any of like the current advantages that Star Atlas is going to bring to the table, really.
How large is the Discord now?
It's grown quite a bit, but they also did a bot purge because of all the hacks. So it's a 185 right now on Discord and 255 on Twitter.
And a bot purge doesn't mean that they only purge bots. It means they probably got some live people out of the Discord as well. So just so everybody knows that.
Mm-hmm. So it's a fascinating project in the sense that there is no gameplay now. They have some interesting tokenomics, interesting staking model, which quite a few of us here in the show have been participating in for quite some time. ILV is somewhere in the neighborhood of $800 right now. I think it capped out, or all-time high was about $1,800. And what's just kind of fascinating is that even the project, the community seems to be tight enough and in support of the way that the project delivers information, that even back around September, October, maybe, when they announced that they were not going to have their playable alpha this year, didn't even impact the price of Illuvium. And even now, with the market suppressed as it is, the price is still double what it was back in around August of last year. So it's an interesting project that it has support and has belief. And I think a lot of that belief comes from the fact that there are some who's who names that are investors in it. But also they've got some fascinating tokenomics. They're doing things in a different way with their staking than I've seen in other projects.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit it on the head as far as like broader range perspective when it comes to looking at and evaluating these games and these NFTs. We were kind of talking about this earlier, is that it's a lot of times it's all about community, you know. So when you join and you start doing your research and you're looking at these games or these NFT projects, and you see like I'm in a Discord right now of a project I was just looking at, and they're all talking about floor price, and they're all talking about price, money, you know, gimme, which lets you know that a bunch of people are going to dip out at the first sign of failure or the first sign of value loss. And then you have other projects where people are talking about how passionate they are about the game and what they see in the future and things like that. And they're not necessarily there for the money, they're there for the project. And those are the kind of communities that will last when you have situations like Axie has, or, you know, any of these projects. When the market turns downward, you're not going to see a ton of people just dropping and selling off on you, because they actually believe in the long-term future of the game, and that's important.
Yeah, great point. I don't have anything else for Illuvium this week. That isn't going to be very loud. Go on, Ray.
No, I was going to say the land sale is soon. I forget the exact dates, if it did even come out with exact dates, but it's coming soon. And
they put the initial proposal out, but then the hack happened and they delayed that. But they implemented a white hat hacker thing for compensation if people find bugs, rather than just exploiting the shit out of it.
Smart move.
Right.
You can see that a lot more projects. You know, bug bounties is a thing that's worked everywhere else in every other sector. I haven't really seen a whole lot of these gaming companies doing that. They should be. You're right.
Yeah, it should happen before the hack, but instead of after.
Yeah. Especially DAOs, right? I mean, if you think about it, gaming DAOs would be doing well to actually have somebody in try and break them. it would create some confidence in some of the investments that are going on.
It's this whole industry now is kind of like pioneers exploring a new land and having to deal with the natives along the way. All the NFT projects and all the different ways that hackers and scammers, they're all lined up down the road. It's almost like a game itself. As you're going down trying to get to the mint, you're like, hey, why don't you come over here? It's like you've got these things that you have to navigate, and these projects are also having to say, like, look, we're a new project. How do we learn from what has already happened before? How do we prevent our Discord from being hacked? How do we prevent our members from being scammed by people that pretend to be us on social media, pretend to be us in DM? And how do we structure things in such a way that we can be transparent and people can follow us in a safe way, even if they're new, because that's who's at greatest risk.
How do we even get a mint off or do a whitelist without it being corrupted and the mint going in? I mean, who's had a perfect mint in the space yet? I mean, this is all brand new. I use your analogy all the time when I'm talking to my friends and whatnot, Jesse. I say it's the wild, wild west, right? And so it's like, the people who got in those carriages and went out there first, some of them, they got cities and streets and all kinds of stuff named after them now, and their family owns a town or whatever. And some of those people didn't make it, and it's important. It's important to realize that. I mean, you're in the wild, wild west in basically by every metric. You're in the wild, wild west if you're in the metaverse right now, and high risk, high reward. Or
if we use the old game of Oregon Trail, it's like there's a lot of dysentery to be had out there.
On that note, is there any last minute thoughts from anyone in the Metaverse Nomads about Metaverse at large or any of the games that we're looking into?
Just briefly on the note that Banjo said, what project out there had a successful mint? I think solarbots.io, which is the website, is a great project that I kind of got in on the mint and also on OpenSea after the fact because of just not how popular it is yet. The team is great, and from what they did with the mint was you can partake in the not gas wars, but in that portion of the public minting, and then there was also an option that I never seen before that even the community members that were also Axie and then from around the space also said they never seen before, where there was a reserve function that was in the contract where you can reserve 2 mints, which were a team of 4 solar bots, and then you can wait for all the gas war to finish, or wait on a day 2 weeks from now that where the gas fees are cheap or low on the Ethereum network, and then you can pay the transaction fee to then claim those reserved mints. So they would be subtracted from the total amount, and it would help the people who don't have enough money to mint on that same day within the 2 minutes of the project selling out. So it was a pretty nifty thing that was novel for that project that I've never seen anywhere else. And then everyone was satisfied. The people who couldn't pay that high of a gas fee in Ethereum were still able to secure on a later date their assets. And then the ones who were whales, who were technically wanting more so in the moment, were able to do that and pay that fee. And so it was a nice spread of people who were able to get in. So I think that was a major success, and everyone was content after the fact. It wasn't like any other projects where everyone's just like fuming out the ears. So kudos to them.
Great. Jesse, any last minute thoughts?
Not other than I'm excited for what's continuing to unfold, and we'll be right here, and hopefully all of you that are watching show up and continue to participate in the conversation.
Fantastic. Fancy, any last minute thoughts? Silence is golden. Bonafide, any last minute thoughts?
Well, I think I went on ahead and did the contrary on a lot of the conversation today and was talking about a lot of the dangers of being out here. And I just want to go ahead and reiterate to everybody that don't be negative. Don't go in harder on anything that don't go in with a level of value that you can't afford to lose. However, at the same time, if you're here in the space, if you're engaged, if you're paying attention, if you're learning from your mistakes, we're all going to make it. And good morning.
Fantastic. Well, on behalf of the Metaverse Nomads collectively, thank you to all of you who's tuned in for 2 hours and 53 minutes today. We'll be back next week talking about the same things, Star Atlas, Illuvium, Axie, and any other game that we feel perks our interest. If you have things that you want us to engage you about, please leave a comment in the comments, reach out to us on Twitter, or join us at GoRoam.io. Have a great day, everyone.
Are you ready for the next evolution in gaming? Blockchain games are here. Why just play when you can play to earn? Enter the Star Atlas Metaverse with Rome. Star Atlas is a grand strategy game of space exploration, territorial conquest, political domination, and so much more. Rome is a premier guild of the ONI Faction within Star Atlas. Rome is here to play and to earn. Want to take part in the action? Rome is accepting new citizens. Join the Rome Guild on Discord to learn more at GoRome.io.